Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 10. It's our first episode covering The Great Hunt, Book 2. And I'm joined, as always, by my good friends, Jody.
Buenos días, amigos.
And Billy.
Goeiemorgen.
Guys, I'm excited. I'm so excited to start on a book of which I remember virtually nothing.
Yeah, isn't that the guy? I mean, book one was the same.
There was a hunt and there was a horn.
Exactly. I don't know about you guys, but all I remember about the Great Hunt is the end, the fight with the big battle where the
I don't remember the end.
where the horn is blown and all that sort of stuff going down, and then also probably because of the name of the book, but I also remember the horn exchanging hands, like people trying to steal it and steal it back and that sort of thing all the time.
News to me. I remember the cover art.
And that's it.
Yay!
But I mean, even just reading these first couple of chapters, it's a lot of setup, as you would expect at the beginning of the book. But you can sort of see where some of these paths are going to go, and I am just bristling with excitement. This is more exciting to me than even reading The Eye of the World again, because The Eye of the World, I still had the basic outline of the book.
How far have you read into the hunt, Moritz?
I have only read the chapters that we are covering in this episode. For every episode we have recorded thus far, I had only read the chapters up until the end of our recording.
Villy's on book 7 already. Where are you, Villy?
I wish. It's I must say it's an interesting one because it's captivating. It's much more captivating. You don't have that lulls in between of holding back and going through wow, this is hard admin. There's chapter to chapter. It just keeps you going.
Have you run into any stupid time skip shenanigans yet?
No, I haven't gone into any.
Excellent.
Stupid,
That's good news.
I'm very stoked about that. The confusing experiment that went awry in book 1.
Oh, God, yeah, with the multiple farmers on apple carts.
Well, good thing. I mean, he tried it once and then he gave up. That was good.
Yes.
Realized his mistake. This book as well has a completely different tone. I noticed it instantaneously. Did you guys get that as well?
Definitely, because of the last episode, and Villy sort of emphasizing with his favorite part of the whole book being that tension in the start, and his first two favorite moments from the first two episodes were both the building tension and that sort of thing. So we spent a bit of time talking about it right at the end of our last recording, which in this case was only a week ago. So that's still fresh in my mind, and the juxtaposition of the start of this book with the start of The Eye of the World is it's quite stark. It's just, as we were saying before the recording started, quite a lot of exposition. Everyone already knows each other. There's very little in terms of mood setting. It's all sort of character introduction and info dumps and that sort of stuff, and much less atmosphere. At least that was my read.
Absolutely. Also quite a lot of monologues, if that's the right word to use. A person thinking through a lot of what's happening around him, sort of internal processing and thoughts, and the entire the prologue, which we'll delve in shortly.
All right. Well, before we delve into all that stuff, let's quickly take care of a bit of housework and do some callbacks from the last episode. You guys might find some of these interesting. Do you remember us talking about how much time we thought had expired or transpired during the duration of The Eye of the World? Billy, I think you said about 30 days or something.
Yeah,
right?
I was going on about 30 days. Yeah, that's right.
And Joe, do you remember what you guessed?
Something similar?
Nah, I think so, actually.
40 days. I think you said 40 days.
I thought you guys were both crazy. I thought you thought that there was way more. I thought it was much shorter than that. It was 2.5 months.
What? They were in the ways. They were in the ways. That's why. On the outside, it was 2 months, 2.5 months, but for them, it was only a month. There you go.
Maybe. I mean, I found a Reddit post, as you would, that's probably the primary source of information for any number of topics in the world today. But someone had gone and done some of the time calculations based on things like moon cycles and, not just like all kinds of like actual external reference points external to the characters.
Hold on. How many apple carts did he count into that fact?
An infinite amount, because time is circular.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, so that was, I mean, I was shocked when I saw that. Some of the other books, are actually much shorter. This is one of the longer ones, like the most time transpired during book one. And I had thought that it had flown. I thought that they had just flown through the story so quickly that, I was surprised, certainly surprised when I read 2.5 months for the duration.
I am officially opposed to that 2.5 month theory. I don't care how many moon cycles or apple carts were taken into account. It was faster than that. Formal complaint lodged. Moving on.
Very well. We also, I mean, us and the rest of the world have sort of agonized over like exactly what happened with Agenor, but it seems to be universally accepted within the Wheel of Time community that Agenor did die because he burned himself out, because he drew too much power from the eye. And we, in that conversation, sort of spoke about, Agenor being reincarnated as, either Osangar or Arangar. And Jody, you were saying one of those was definitely one of these two Forsaken. But Osangar and Arangar were both Agenor and Belthamel.
Okay. So
They were the two that were resurrected.
which one of those two is the woman?
It was Belthamel.
Bartholomew. Okay.
Because it was sort of like a cruel joke. Like he was into the pleasures of the flesh when he was in the Age of Legends and as a Forsaken. And then when he was reincarnated, he was put in a woman's body, which is obviously the gender that he probably exploited. I mean, I'm guessing, but it's not that much of a stretch. So he came back as the woman, Halima. And now, Vili, this bit might actually be a bit of a spoiler for you, because I don't remember at which point of the story this is actually revealed. But Osangar, who was Agenor, was posing as Dashiva, one of the more quote-unquote loyal Ashaman to Rand.
Honestly, that may or may not be a spoiler, because I don't recall many of the the people
enough.
from the.
My memory of him is also patchy at best, but I think he's the one that they always said sort of looked kind of aloof, like he looked like he was always kind of like dreamy and staring off into nothing and that sort of thing. But even in the reading that I did about Osangar and Arangar, Dashiva at times displayed behavior that would not fall in line with Agenor. Like he actually, I think he saves Rand's life at some point, and he is surprised by things, and his reactions to news and things don't always line up with him being a Forsaken. But some of the explanation for that is that he was charged with actually keeping Rand alive,
Okay.
and not letting him die. But now, I mean, I say now, but it's going to be a couple books' time when the Black Tower is established, and Dashiva is one of the first Ashaman that you read about repeatedly, because he's around a lot. Keep in the back of your mind, that's Agenor.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. The Black Aja as well, when I was reading these, like a lot of like, oh my God, yes, that's Black Aja. And can I interject here with the news that I found out this week that really blew my mind?
Please do.
The Ogier are aliens.
What?
The Ogier are not from Randland. They have a book of something, I can't remember what it's called now, and they come from a different world.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. And at the end, before the last battle, they actually have a stump meeting to decide whether or not to go back to their home world or to help and to stay and help fight the last battle. And they obviously stay and help.
I have zero recollection of this.
Me neither.
Amazing.
But look into it. So we've got aliens, magic.
Aliens, look into it.
Yeah, definitely. We're just missing some Vikings, I suppose. And then it will be complete.
And a foil hat or two.
Ghosts. They are ghosts.
Chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
Another thing we were sort of speculating about is why did they need the horn in Ilion? Like Moiraine sort of has a big reaction when Agelmar talks about using the horn to go level Shyle Ghul, and she goes, "No, it has to go to Ilion." And we were sort of speculating about whether that is something from the prophecies from the. Oh, I'm not going to pronounce
Carathian
that
cycle.
Carathian cycle. You said it first, so now I'm just going to copy you.
Yeah, it's canon.
But we read in these chapters why Moiraine intends for the horn to go to Ilion. So I won't elaborate on that right now. We also spoke about the broken seal and, Forsaken walking the earth and the seals weakening. This is not something that I researched. This is just something that I thought about since editing and listening to the episode again. That Agenor and Balthamel were already in the world. So some of the seals would have broken. So I think that broken seal they found at the Eye was already broken because some of the Forsaken were already out. And they're always talking about the seals weakening throughout the series. They're saying the seals on the Dark One's prison are weakening, blah, 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 blah. But then the fact that they are already loose means that, at least some of the seals, if not that very one, were already broken. And Moiraine at one point when she's talking to Swan in one of these chapters, and we'll get there again, obviously, in this episode, she reiterates the fact that, the one power cannot break Quaindiyar,
Gwendiyar.
or as I will refer to it from this moment forward, Heartstone.
Yes, common tongue, please.
She does say that a power or some power has corrupted or broken them, and that could very well be the true power. That could be the Dark One's power working against this thing that is resistant to the one power, but perhaps not as resistant to something else like the true power. I did some more thinking about the cords and the guys' backs and about being bound because of them, but I think we ended up on a pretty decent explanation of what we think the cords are. And Jody, I liked your analogy about it being anything that you need to be granted access to that is not sort of like Wi-Fi all around you, like the Force, like the one power is
ADSL
everywhere.
cable,
Yes, exactly. And then I was also thinking about, because I was seriously considering Villy's theory as well about like it having some, connotation to them being bound somewhere, like it actually being a binding thing, sort of holding them back. But then I sort of ran up against the thing of like, okay, then why is cutting those bonds a bad thing for them? Like why would they not want that? Which quite clearly they didn't.
No, sir.
That's about it. Did you guys have anything from the last episode that you wanted to call back to?
A couple of ones. We've had a little bit of our own South African lingo that fell into our discussion when I listened to it while I was fishing the other day. What a great fishing session that was. But yeah, biltong. Referred to one of the Forsaken that looked like a piece of biltong. Although that's beef jerky. That's a dried out piece of meat. A great delicacy for us.
Very apt.
Very apt. But yeah, a dried out piece of meat.
Yes. I think I also at one point I said something like someone was talking cuck, and that's just talking shit. Yeah.
And that's about it.
Okay.
And so we have cuck, biltong, and bliksemed. So this is a very educational.
Should we at this point just pivot to an Afrikaans podcast?
You speak Afrikaans, I'll speak Spanish. Yeah, you can get that simulcast on Radio 2000.
Oh, Joe, you just did it again. Another South African joke that no one else will get.
Well, you can push the red button if you're in England on Sky to get the This is the simulcast in Spanish.
Okay, then, guys, let's get started on book 2 of the Wheel of Time.
It's about bloody time.
Champing at the bit. So we'll start with a prologue. It seems like a good place to start. It's called In the Shadow, and Villy, why don't you take us through that?
Cool. All right, let's go. Now, very, very colorful. We meet old Bors, and Bors is mainly having sort of an internal conversation with themselves and their own thoughts of going to what appears to be a very lavish palace in some place, everyone clad in black. There's the scene from Eyes Wide Shut, that very weird movie comes to mind, minus the sex. But
Yes.
everyone's kind of dressed up, masked up. But a great emphasis on him trying to recognize how many different people there are coming from different areas. So that there's a Ileana, there's someone from there's someone, one of the sea
Mm.
folk, even a tinker, and down
Yes.
to a woman that you can only see her fingers. She's so
Yes.
clad in black and she's wearing a serpent ring.
Yes.
So even from the White Tower, there's the Darkfriend Social indeed.
Well, we know already, and we mentioned it in a previous episode, he's Jacob Carradine. Bors he is a inquisitor from the White
Mm.
Cloaks. So his whole thing is like, gathering information and drawing information out of people. So
He's the detective.
yes.
So he's detecting where everyone's from.
Mm.
From women, men, all of that.
Yes.
So they're all there gathered in this room, which you would kind of liken to a throne room with sort of lacquered floor with like mosaic type tiles. And then all of a sudden doors open before doors open, serving men and women, all clad in white and tight breeches and kind of like a little bit sexy, I suppose. All young and looking alike.
If
And
you're into that sort of like walking corpse, marionette, dead eye kind of look.
But he kind of gets the idea like, no, they are all probably dead after this. So they just there to serve for the day and then they'll be unmade.
Harvested.
Whichever you choose. Trollocked, if you may. But the Trollocs then, speaking of Trollocs, they open up the doors and they come marching through. And ironically, all of them being our dark friends, sort of gathering for this great meeting in this very sort of suspicious way. Everyone's got suspicion of the other. Kind of suspicion in one side and envy to who's going to be sort of the dark friend rising to the top out of all of this. It's kind of when you go for an interview, you kind of suss everyone out there. You don't talk, but you in your mind, you mentally sort of, nah, mate, you ain't going to get it.
Or like an acting audition or something. You're scoping everyone else out.
It's maybe standing in line to sing Idols or something where you can see everyone in the queue. You can choose to be friendly.
1-to-1. Same thing.
Yeah. And then the Trollocs walk in. They all kind of almost like they're part of the Trollocs, but they still sort of have disdain for them, sort of like maybe a bit of envy, especially when the Madral comes out. That you definitely get that sense that, and Bors especially, sort of like, I'll rise above you. You'll kind of eventually get and bow to me type of thing. And then Bazalman, Shaitan, whoever you want to say. Whether
Baalzamon.
Sounds like a lawyer.
Yes. Well, not a lot of people like lawyers, so let's leave it at that.
Yes.
They all appear out there and kind of sort of, I think there's a part where there's sort of a discussion in their own heads between him and the subject that seems to be quite intense, with an instruction to each of them.
Does he do the 3 images of the boys first and speak to everyone, or does he just go straight to people one by one?
I can't recall now. I think it's the 3 boys that come up. So he creates these, what you'd imagine Princess Leia coming from the projection. Yeah, like R2-D2 in the middle of the hologram type popping up. And you've got Perrin, the bushy-haired goldsmith, and the mischievous... not goldsmith.
Golden-eyed blacksmith.
Golden-eyed blacksmith. That's even better.
After the last battle, he turned to goldsmithing.
He had to do something with all his gold.
Yeah.
And I love the description of Matt, the mischievous looking young man. And then, of course, there's a lot of emphasis on Rand and the Heron Mark blade, and Bors himself thinking about the power of a blade. There's quite a bit of talk about the sword, like a sword can be sort of the point of the sword, or who holds the handle of the sword. There's quite a bit in there. And then just literally the instruction, like, don't take these farm boys lightly. Like, okay, I think maybe the message should come through, like, okay, this is not little bumpkins we're going to walk over. They've kind of already taken out one of my Forsaken, while the other
3.
glutton was...
Didn't they take out 3? I mean, Rand in that dream world at the end of the Eye of the World took out the Alzamon.
Well, he obviously didn't.
And Agenor, well, he took him out temporarily.
Yes.
Oh, he hurt him.
And in this section, I think Bors notices Baalzamon has burnt hands. Something about burnt skin.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's either him turning on some kind of, Halloween style scare tactics, or he suffered physical effects from Rand channeling that white light and fire at the end of that
Well,
fight.
Rand did say he burned him.
Yeah.
So maybe he just got a good old burning.
Mm.
But
He did.
yeah, so where was I there? Basically, don't take them lightly, but this is who they are. Have a look at them. And then after their personal sort of in-mind instructions to what they need to do, and Bors kind of seeing he makes quite a few reference to the woman that's Ileana, that she was quite not dressed as clad in black, sort of cleavage showing, and wanted to show her beauty and youth. Kind of something of that rings a bell to me, like who that person is.
I think there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
Or maybe not Ileana's, but certainly like the Domani and stuff are
Yeah,
often described as showing too much skin.
But they all have their little one-on-ones, and everyone sort of notices how people react, like down to hands sweating and trembling and all of that. And shortly after, everyone disappears, the Madral and them leave the room, and then they get shown to their quarters, where they obviously get their means to travel back to where they need to be. And that's where we learn that Bors actually is getting ready with putting on his white cloak and being what he needs to be back in the Randland.
So there were 2 Aes Sedai in that room. Yeah. Leandrin? Definitely, because that comes up later in my chapter.
Does it? Does she mention being there?
There's one line where she says her orders were very specific or something like that.
Okay, cool.
So
Cool,
they were getting their orders. And was the other one Varen?
Nah, Elaine.
Elaine?
Not Elaine. What is her name now?
Elida.
Elida
Isn't black.
She's just a horrible fucking human being, but she's not black.
This is a terrible read. Elida, when Elida becomes the Amyrlin Seat, she chooses a keeper, Alviarin. She's black.
Oh, right.
Alviarin is Black Archer. I think the other one was Varen.
Yeah.
Oh, Villy, you might not know this. Varen is Black Archer.
Oh.
No.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Varen is a spy in the Black Archer.
She's a double agent.
She's a double agent, yeah.
Well, that goes well. I'll take that rather.
The reason I think it's Varen is because she is completely covered. You can't tell anything about her body shape, and Varen is always described as plump. So you might be able to recognize her body shape. So I think she's like draped in fabric purposefully so that you can't tell who she is by looking at her body shape. That's my theory anyway. And I know that she's a Black Archer member, so.
That's interesting.
It is.
Yeah, but it's a very sort of different chapter. There's not much in it in terms of excitement. Nothing. No, just working through a meeting where everyone gets the instruction. All right, don't take them lightly. They might actually be really good. And also the proclamation that the dragon has been reborn. So that is made in there, and that's a pretty big one as well.
Oh, yes.
It is.
Little afterthought there, really. Oh, yes, the dragon's reborn. Forgot about that.
Do you guys also reckon this is in the dream world?
Oh, I don't know. It's like dream worlds, portals, stones, gateways.
Because the reason I say that is because the fireplace, the fire, does not emit any heat. That in itself doesn't mean anything. I mean, you could cast an illusion or something like that with the 1 power, but Baalzamon also can't fly. You know, like the Forsaken and the Aes Sedai can't just levitate, and Baalzamon is floating like a couple feet above the head of the Fade that came into the room.
What an actor!
And you know, it's all that sort of like weird geometry in the room again, and the like clouds, you know, moving too fast and that sort of stuff. I think this is Baalzamon pulling people in the flesh into the world of dreams, which we know is dangerous, but can be done.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. But then afterwards, when they go back to their rooms, they're in the real world again.
I think they go back to the real world from their rooms. I think they're shown to rooms from which they travel so that no one can
Yeah.
see through the portals where people are going. I mean, Balsamon and later Rand and Elaine and those guys, or Egwene anyway, can open a gateway into the world of dreams. They just
Yeah.
straight up go into a different dimension. So Balsamon ostensibly could do that as well.
Probably. All right. Well, that makes sense. It's a good one.
Well, the meeting wasn't in a castle in Randland. That we know for sure.
No. So Ingtar is there.
Yes.
Shinaran warrior.
Mhm.
Must be him.
Must be.
There's also like 100 people. It's 100 Darkfriends.
Even down to a tinker.
Who's the tinker?
No, it must be Aram. I don't trust that Aram.
Lots of people. I read about this because I was trying to read up about the Darkfriend Social because it's like a well-known meeting place where you get a lot of insight into like the Darkfriends schemes and stuff. And a lot of people also thought that maybe it's Aram, but that's been sort of dispelled because Aram never in the books shows any sign of being a Darkfriend. He's certainly a fanatic, and I think he gets sort of swept up in Massima's people of the dragon movement, Massimo, who we also read about in these chapters, which is cool. But I don't think he was ever proclaimed a Darkfriend or showed a sign of being a Darkfriend. He's just the only other tinker we know, right?
Yeah, we don't like. Like, it could
Yes.
definitely be a Darkfriend.
It was funny because the tinkers, as colorful as they are in their wagons and garb, refused to have all black. They still had their green pants and probably pointy shoes with a bell on it.
Yes. Dancing around jauntily.
Tinkering around.
What else? That's all I got from that thing.
Oh, yes. There was a thing about Ingtar definitely being him there because later on as well, I think it's Lan in the next chapter that Ingtar comes back and he goes, "Oh, he was gone a while on his hunting trip. I wonder if he got anything." So he wasn't there.
Yes.
During the Darkfriend Social, he was
Yes.
missing from Fal Dara.
Yeah.
So I think that's confirmation as well that it was him,
Yeah.
definitely. So we've got
There was
Ingtar,
one guy that
we've got Varen, Leandrin, Jaichim Charajun, that guy?
Jacob Carradine.
That Jacob? Sure. Jacob. Wow.
That's mine.
It's Jaichim for me. But anyway, it's very literal. Yeah.
Don't ask me.
No, we should ask you, Billy. How do you pronounce that?
I will mangle it beyond sort of what Perrin can do to a piece of metal. So let's leave it at that.
That is what we are here to see. Yes. Mangle away, my friend.
Jaichim.
There you go. You see? Confirmed.
Well, Jody, the fact that you and Billy pronounce it the same way is all but confirmation for me that it is not the way you pronounce it.
Totally.
Okay, so it's not Moiraine, it's Moiraine.
It's Moiraine, it's Egwene, it's Padan Fane, it's Quain de Yar. I'm not going to say these words.
No.
I refuse stubbornly.
We also hear about Mazrim in this one, and it's not Mazrim Tame, it's Mazrim Taim.
Taim, yeah.
So why isn't it Padan Fain? That should be, why is it Fain and Taim and not...
Good question.
Fa'im.
Yes.
Fa'im.
These are the questions our listeners come here for.
These are the questions they come here for to have no answers to?
Yes, that's it. Just more questions. That's what we provide.
Welcome to our podcast where you will only leave with more questions in your mind.
There was one guy dressed as a guard from the Royal Andor Guards, and people speculate that could be David Hanlon.
Don't know who he is.
He's a guy that in some of the future books, he becomes the captain of the guard, but he is this real lecherous sleazebag and is almost like, I don't know if he's, I mean, I don't want to confuse him with what's the character from Game of Thrones that is trying to bone.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, trying to bone the queen. Crow's Eye, what's his name? Anyway, the pirate.
Good.
This guy is also trying to bed the queen, and he's like, punching way above his weight, and he's just an all-round bad seed.
That does ring a bell.
And I mean, that would fit. I think he's a drunk as well. Like he's always drinking, and he's just
Of course he
he
is.
doesn't show anyone the proper respect, and he's trying to bone the queen.
Yeah, that's enough of me. I'm a good Queen's man, and I will not stand for that.
Okay, cool. Should we go on?
Yep,
Yes.
let's do it.
Okay, so let's go then to chapter 1, which is The Flame of Tarvalon. We start with a famous intro about the wind starting, in the mountains of Doom and blowing south across, the Blight and into Fal Dara, and then it sort of meets up with Rand and Lan as they're practicing with the swords on top of a tower. Using practice swords, which are just like a bunch of sticks, sort of like lashed together, that make a loud clacking sound when they're busy, making contact. And Lan and Rand are busy, going through the motions, and Rand is also, like lamenting his wounds that he's taken during this practice session. And at one point, Lan tries to do some kind of move that Rand is like, oh God, okay, I can't do anything about this. I just need to get out the way. And as he tries to sort of like back up out of it, the wind gels around him, and it sort of holds him in the air, and time slows, and he can see Lan's sword moving slowly towards his ribcage and then making contact. But instead of him being able to jump back, it actually pushes him into Lan's attack.
Yes.
And Lan's sword actually breaks and shatters, and like the shards actually draw blood and actually do a bit of damage to Rand. And then suddenly Rand is able to jump back again, and Lan is just saying, what the Lan's exact words were, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But he's sort of aghast at what Rand was trying to do there, and Rand tries to explain, like the wind, like it pushed me straight into you. I couldn't explain it. And Lan sort of looks semi-bemused by this and says, well, strange things happen near the Blight, and sort of just waves it off. But did you guys also think this was like a bubble of evil scenario?
I'd forgotten about Bubbles of Evil. I was questioning what this was because later on in all of these chapters, weird things are happening. Rand also thinks he's got eyes on him. Leandrin mentions it a lot as well. Like her skin's prickling in the hallways. It feels like she's being watched from the shadows.
Well, in that case, I've got a theory on that as well. I think that might be Paden Fane or a Fade, or there's an actual presence in the fort that is watching them. But the bubbles of evil, like I think the first one that I remember reading about was in Tyr or somewhere, where they're in a room and like axes and weapons start flying off the walls and like attacking them, and Rand is sort of like holding up a door or something to, I could be confusing that with something else, but like weird stuff happens later in the books. Like someone, like I think it's with the Sean-chan or someone, like scarabs just start coming out of their mouth, and like they turn to mush, or people sink into the ground. There's that whole city later in the books that people have turned to dust, and when Nynaeve touches them, it just falls to dust. It's these weird, totally unexplained phenomena that really mess with everyone, and they become more and more frequent as
it's just like condensed air of the Blight that kind of like just moving. And
well, they talk about all those smells from the Blight, like like the smell of the tomb had already worn away most of the time before the wind reached Fal Dara, that sort of stuff. But it was a bit more than that. It was something really, really weird, and the only explanation I can think of is one of those bubbles of evil.
No, it tracks. But I mean, if you think about the amount of sort of 3 Taveran, you've got Paden Fane in the building, you've got a whole lot of people, you got the Horn of Valir in there, you've got everything in there.
3 Taveran.
3 Taveran.
The Dragon Reborn.
The Dragon Reborn. I mean, it would make sense that bubbles would be floating around any which way.
Yeah. And Lan even, hints at the fact that someone like you is in the tower. It could be this weird thing happened because you're Taveran. Like you may have like basically drawn this down upon yourself. But then he pivots to like, Rand, when do you intend on leaving? It's like a month ago you said that you were going to be gone. And Rand goes into one of his sulky sort of introspective modes where he's just looking at the sword and thinking about Tam as his dad. And as long as he hangs onto the sword and learns how to use it, he still has the right to call Tam his dad. Blah, 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 blah. We get it, Rand.
Daddy issues.
And yeah, Lan actually suggests to Rand that he sell the sword. And Rand looks completely aghast, obviously, and Lan says to him, that sword will get a lot of money because that is not just a heron mark blade. I mean, a heron mark blade is rare enough, but that sword is power wrought. That sword was made 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
A 3,000-year-old sword. And it's almost identical to Lan's. His is also power wrought, as we established in a previous episode, but he obviously doesn't have the herons on his. But Rand obviously is never going to sell this thing. He rejects the idea completely. And they sort of go, okay, cool, well, let's work on your balance again, back into these forms. And Lan starts instructing him. But as they go back into practice mode, they start hearing trumpets in the distance, and they look over the wall, and they basically see a large procession coming out of the forest. And it turns out it's the Amyrlin Seat, and a whole bunch of warders and Aes Sedai with her. And Lan makes a sort of offhanded comment to Rand. He's like, sort of like, now that she's here, it's better. It would have been better if you were gone already for a week, if you were gone a week ago.
Yeah. But late now, buddy. He's been dragging his feet for a month.
Totally. And I mean, the characters even, that's the end of the chapter, by the way, so feel free to discuss. But the characters even talk about the fact that it's weird for Lan to say that to Rand. To say anything sort of quote unquote negative about any Aes Sedai, much less the Amyrlin Seat herself. But I think it is Lan playing along with Moiraine's game to try and egg Rand on to go. Because that's what Moiraine wants. She wants him to go out into the world and stumble his way through the prophecies because of the fact that he's Ta'veren, instead of trying to lead him there.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Yes.
Now, because they're obviously been reading a bit further, and we'll I think we cover it in this cast now, that Swan actually questions Moiraine that Lan has been guiding him in a discussion that Moiraine and Swan has. It's like, oh, Lan's obviously been teaching him. It's almost like he's been teaching him too much. Like,
I don't know if that does come up in this section.
Maybe it's a little bit further. Maybe in the next one.
They do speak those two, but I don't remember a reference to them, but that could just be me not remembering.
Yeah, that's because Lan helps him a hell of a lot more than he should, which plays to, does he help him on the instruction of what Moiraine wants him to help him with or guide him to? Or is there a genuine, sincere part of sort of helping him beyond that? Sort of get away.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a bit of column A, a bit of column B.
I'd say a bit of both.
Like maybe he is following Moraine's instructions. I mean, Moiraine did tell them originally when the boys are traveling from Eamon's Field, she asks Lan. I think she asks Lan to train them, start showing them how to use their weapons. I think that was her idea.
No, he gets help from Lan beyond just weapon training, sort of even down to how to handle the Queen in book 1 when he meets the chapter where he fell off the wall with Gawain and Elaine. There was kind of helped everything that Lan taught him in their training, helped him sort of follow the prompts on how to kneel, and he helped him a lot further, you gather, in that chapter.
I think you mentioned that in that episode, and I think I disagreed with you at the time, and I'm going to disagree with you again. I think Rand was just looking around to what everyone was doing around him. I don't think Lan ever had any intention for Rand to encounter royalty. Like, Lan and Moraine's whole thing is to keep him under wraps for now. I don't, again, could be wrong, but I don't remember like a specific instruction in terms of like how to handle yourself in a royal court. In fact, I don't know if Lan would necessarily adhere to any of those social norms and think that Rand should.
I don't know. Lan isn't teaching Matt or Perrin anywhere near the stuff that he has or what we can read that he attacks he
teaches Perrin how to use the axe properly, but Lan is a master swordsman and Rand has a sword, and Rand has also asked Lan to teach him how to use the sword, because Rand is the one that's constantly talking about how he needs to learn how to use this because Tam gave it to him. And even in this chapter, it's like, keeping the sword legitimizes Tam as my dad. And if I have the sword, I have to learn how to use it because it's going to attract attention, right? Like, he's walking around with a Blade Master blade and people are going to come up at him.
I'm going to go with Lan is helping him a lot more.
I'm going to disregard everything you said.
You can. Hey, also, Also, Moiraine does. Moiraine coaches him in
Mm.
etiquette and how to deal with royalty. She's basically his advisor.
Yeah, well, she did grow up in the royal court in Cairhine, so she knows
She
some
did.
shit.
And Lan is a king.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, but he never grew up as royalty. Like he left.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he left when he was a baby.
They hint at Moraine's noble lineage in these chapters.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it. I did know that it is something I remembered from previous reads, but not the details of it.
Yeah. Yeah, what else?
He gets a walloping. He gets
He does.
bruised. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's Lan just knows how to get through anything and everything that he wants to throw at him.
Rand poses zero challenge to Lan, right?
Like nothing. Yeah, there is a point where he's looking at his welts on his body and looking at Lan, who's welt free,
Weltless.
Unmarked.
weltless, and yeah, and definitely Lan is not even trying his hardest. Like
No.
all Rand can do is just deflect the blows like inches from
Totally.
his head right before they strike. That's all he could do.
But at the same time, Lan makes the comment that Rand is learning really, really quickly.
Yes, Taviran.
So, Rand is at this point not just a country bumpkin anymore.
No.
And still Lan is laughing his way through it.
When you moved to Australia, you went for some sword classes, I recall, years ago.
I went to a samurai sword fighting class once in Johannesburg.
Oh, even before you moved.
Before
here.
I moved to Oz.
Did you cop any welts there?
I did not, because we were using broomsticks, and the instructor wisely did not allow any of us to swing a broomstick at another person.
All right. I was just wondering if you copped a welt there and give us some insight into the welts.
I know how to hold a samurai sword. I know not to touch a real one. I also know how to do an overhead strike immediately after blocking another strike, like how to hold the sword vertically to deflect anything coming at me and convert that into an overhead strike.
It's awesome how you also now start getting the insights into how Lan teaches Rand, and then you starting to get the forms, like the names of the forms now starting to develop in this sort of.
What's the hummingbird? Is one of them the hummingbird? Picks a flower or something.
Boar rushes down the mountain and all kinds of
leaf floats
something
on the
through
wind.
the thistles and
something through the thistles.
I read somewhere that Robert Jordan very specifically and pointedly did not describe what each of those forms actually looks like, to leave fight scenes up to the reader's imagination, instead of trying to sort of like write every single move and counter, which could become a bit tedious to read. I mean, it would be sort of spoon feeding you a cool action sequence, but I think reading everyone's move and thought would be hard to keep track of and actually coalesce into a smooth fight scene.
No, I think it was done perfectly. I like the mystery of the moves, and they have funny names, but yeah,
and the poetry of it. Like we've already established that Lan is also a warrior poet, and like all these sword forms have these flowery names, and it's always described as like a dance. Like there's an artistry to it that is conveyed very well by using these sort of descriptive or non-descriptive names, these abstract names.
Almost like a ballet.
I dig it.
Yeah.
A ballet of death.
The forms were developed in the Age of Legends when they had to learn how to conduct war, and they started training with the sword. So maybe because they came from a very cultured society with dances and ballets all the time, they incorporated that in to developing a technique with the sword.
Love that theory.
All right. Just came up with it right now.
You're a genius.
I know. Thank you.
Between my samurai experience and your ingenuity, we are going to be able to dissect every single fight scene in these books.
Indeed. I have watched The Highlander over 100 times, so I am an expert.
Wow. Jesus, you should see someone.
It's the greatest movie ever.
Should we move on to chapter 2?
Yeah, don't get me started on that. Right. Chapter 2.
The Welcome.
You guys get very cool chapter names. I get The Welcome. So again, it's Rex Manning Day, Amyrlin Seat Day. So the Amyrlin is coming. Everyone's convinced she's coming for Rand. Like Rand's, we start like, we've heard the trumpets blaring in the previous chapter. Like, oh, here she comes. Lan telling Rand, you should have legged it long ago, buddy. And so Rand is running. He's just left the training area and he's running down to get to his apartments because he's going to leg it now. And he's like, no, I got to get out of here. So he's running through the hallways and everybody is freaking out and running around and upset. Everyone upset. Like, why didn't we get any warning that the Amyrlin was coming? We can't do our best if we don't have any advanced warning. And everybody's seeing Rand going, hey, she's coming for you. She's coming for you. Like in a joking way. But Rand's got feeling like, oh shit, everyone knows.
Just on that point, Jody, this is something that I was thinking about while reading these chapters, and specifically, I think this event is what triggered it. The fact that no one had warning that the Amyrlin is coming. In these chapters, Swan says that Elida sent 6 pigeons to the White Tower with one specific message, and we'll get to that in the chapter where it comes up. But I get the sense that communication in this world is shockingly bad. Moiraine is completely out of touch. She hasn't heard any news. All these whispers and rumors of strange people landing on the west coast and war brewing on the Elmouth Plain and that sort of thing. It's all super super unsubstantiated, and coming off of the cultural touchstone that Game of Thrones is, where ravens were sent daily. Yeah. And, like people traveled vast distances almost instantly. And I know it's different in the books than it is in the show, but the show is sort of now set a sort of bar of expectation in viewers of the show. And it just seems like they're way behind the 8 ball in terms of communication. I mean, these guys have Terangriel that send them into the world of dreams. Can they meet in the world of dreams like the girls do later? They clue onto this thing. Yeah, we can keep meeting in the world of dreams and just exchange information. But the Aes Sedai seem, apart from this mention of pigeons, they seem woefully inept at, communicating with each other.
Sending a pigeon. That's just, first of all, when you send a raven, it's like a badass bird that can fend for itself. You send a pigeon, the thing is stopping at every city and picking seeds. And it's like, there's nothing ever good come from a pigeon.
But also in the later books, like every city they stop in, Moiraine has like a network of spies and her eyes and ears here and there, blah, blah, blah. But in these books, like, I mean, she doesn't mention anything in Camelin. She comes to Fal Dara. Everything's news to her. She's surprised by stuff. It just seems like a little, maybe this is Robert Jordan still finding his feet and sort of like, maybe he'll realize in later books that information needs to be able to travel faster than rumor and, these sort of whisperings coming from across the land. But it just hit me in these chapters already. I was like, these guys are so bad at communicating. Like, how do you get anything done?
Oh, no, they've gone slack in the 3,000 years that the wheel was grinding slowly. Like, everyone just went like, yeah, what's important to see? Oh, I saw a black cat cross the road. Yeah, who cares?
We should really communicate, guys. No, it's like, we should really communicate more. Like, how are we going to do it? Pigeons? Yeah, sure. We'll do pigeons. It's like the first idea someone came up with. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's true.
No need to improve on that.
Pigeons. I don't know. I don't think lack of communication, like bad communication, was the reason they didn't know. I think she came on purpose in secret in this occasion.
Up until the point that she was blaring her trumpets.
Yeah. Surprise, bitches, here I am. So basically, yeah, she arrives. And it's a surprise as well, because one of the Fal Darans says, like, we haven't seen an Aes Sedai here, an Amyrlin Seat in living memory. The Amyrlin Seat has never come here. So it's a huge event for everybody.
Yeah.
So Rand's he's running through the hallways, coming to his bedroom. It bursts through the door into his room, and it's full of women.
The theme with Rand.
Yes. So he's got several women. But he busted, it's all serving women in this case. And we meet Elansa, if that's how you pronounce it. She's the head honcho here. She runs Fal Dara, and she's there collecting all of Rand's clothes on the orders of Moiraine to get rid of all the old clothes and burn them specifically. We find out later that it's to cleanse them of any tracking devices or anything, so that they can't be tracked later on. But it does seem a bit extreme when he hears that his clothes are being taken off and being burnt. It's a bit much. Yeah. But anyway, there's a reason for it. And they're in his cupboards taking out all his stuff. And there's this reminded me as well about that piece of string I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember. So they because there's a mention in the book that they emptying everything they find in his pockets they keep on the bed, and I'm wondering, did they keep the piece of string? Like,
He might need that later.
he might need it, man. And I'm wondering, this string should come up in the books. It's a huge missed opportunity if it was not there as some sort of Angriel or Teangriel. The string is the reason he wins the last battle. Thank God I had that piece of string. Anyway, so he's like, well, look, I need to get changed. And they're like, well, do it. Because apparently here in Shinar, and I've also learned that the pronunciation is Shinar, but these people are not shy at all. So I refuse to call it that.
Har,
They har. They are they bath together, the men and the women. There was even a scene earlier where Rand went to go to the baths, to the public baths, and Lady Amelisa got in the bath with him to strip down. This is like the lady of the keep, Anglemar's wife. So everyone just baths together. Sister, sorry.
It's his sister, yeah.
Sorry, his sister. So he's very shy, but they are not like that at all. So he eventually coaxes them out, says, look, on my honor, I will give you my clothes if you just get out and let me get dressed. And he opens up his cupboards, and it's just stacked to the rafters with really cool shit. And there's even a cloak with a red dragon embroidered on it. And I'm thinking,
golden dragon. Isn't it a red cloak with a golden dragon?
Yeah.
Whatever. What the fuck, Moiraine? Why would you commission a dragon on his coat?
He
in
packs
book
it.
2.
He packs it.
He packs it.
He says that he will unstitch the embroidery later. We'll see.
Yeah,
it's a good quality cloak. He liked the look of it, except for the
Mm-hmm.
embroidery.
Well, I
take
suppose
the shit off later.
Yeah, but he probably packed it so no one could find it. I mean, it would be good to keep that with you, I imagine. Don't leave evidence behind. Could win that. Anyway,
I love that whole scene there where all the serving girls are kind of like laughing at Rand, and he's trying to. They're like, no, you can take it off. We'll wait for it. And he's kind of like blushing, shy, and they you literally get herded out the door.
So yeah, he herds them out the door, kicks them out, gets changed, and then passes them the clothes, like hiding behind the door, naked, like, just take it, go. And she's like, really? Maybe I should come in and check, just like they are just giving him so much shit about it and giggling behind the door. But anyway, so he kicks them out, they take all his clothes, and he gets dressed in his new tight breeches and under the bed, because they got these beds in Shinar that are built on top of fireplaces, basically. They're like built structures, and they build fires underneath them to keep them warm at night. And obviously it hasn't been that cold, so he's stacked, and this is where he's kept Tom's stuff. So when they left, he opens it up, and he's still got Tom's stuff. That's a nice little memory there, and he's got the harp and the flute and all of that. So he packs that in his saddlebags. He takes some cloaks and some clothes, and he grabs his bow and a quiver and his sword. And there's like a nice little moment as well where he packs everything on the same shoulder so he can keep his sword arm free. So the training is kicking in. And he's also doing it just so that he looks dangerous. So when people look at him, they'll go, like, people who know at least about sword fighting will go like, oh, his sword arm is free. This guy knows what he's doing. But he doesn't. He has no idea. And it does come up later in the books as well. Like, you think, like, okay, he's been trained. Like you said, Moritz, like, he's been trained. He's getting good. He's not a country bumpkin. But later on, he fumbles around, and he's not very good at all. So he heads out with his saddlebags, and he's trying to get out of Dodge as fast as possible. And he finds that he's been drawn to the courtyard where the Amyrlin Seat has arrived. The whole procession has arrived. Like, he should have gone the other way, a sneakier way, but he goes through the direct route through everybody. And as he comes out, the courtyard is packed, and he's pushing through people, and they, nobody notices him because everyone's just got their eye on the procession that has arrived. And there's 14 Aes Sedai with the Amyrlin and 14 warders all there. So all colors are represented, I think, as well. Well, a good selection of them.
Two of each Aja, right? If it's 14.
Yep, that does make sense.
There are 14 they mention in this chapter, and later Swan says that she brought 2. She was, when talking about bringing 2 from the blue, the hall was saying, oh, but you and Leanne are already going.
Yeah.
When she's actually supposed to be of all the Ajas. So she almost couldn't bring the 2
and
blues.
The only reason that the warders, I think, balanced out is because the raids didn't have warders, and the greens had some spare
multiples.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The greens. Some of the greens have sexual relationships with their warders as well, don't they? Yeah, they're totally feminist. Like they dig fighting, got several boyfriends. Anyway,
Mhm.
So yeah, they're all there, and it's actually mentioned in another book as well that the Amyrlin Seat is scanning all the people, and her eyes just pass over him, like she doesn't notice him, but she does.
Yeah.
We read about that later. And anyway, so he's making his way out to the stables. He's going to go get a horse, and he's going to get out of there. And basically, there's a whole bunch of welcomes and formalities that happen, and as the welcoming of the Amyrlin Seat and wada. But basically, that's it. And Rand's heading for the stables to go get a horse and get out of there. And that's the end.
I had very few notes on this chapter. I mean, it's
There's not much to note.
yeah, from A to B to C. Like you said, Joe Swan obviously just she doesn't give away that she sees him.
Yeah.
But it made me think. Her description made me think of what you said. Logain saw as
Exactly.
well.
Mm.
And we're probably jumping the gun, but what the hell? There's not much meat on this bone, so let's add it in here. But when Swan says that she saw him, it's because she's got a very rare talent where she can
Yes.
see Taverin.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Logain has the same talent for men.
It must be, because it's not a thing that all other male channelers can see him
No.
blazing like the sun.
I don't think anyone else ever describes him as that.
Yeah, what did Logan say? He saw him blazing like a sun, or
Yeah, he
something
doesn't
on
say
the
it in this
wall.
book. He says it later on when he joins
Yeah.
the Dark Tower, the Black Tower.
Mm.
And he says, I remember seeing you that day, and he mentions it then. That's a couple of books time, I don't know. But yeah, also that term, like blazing like a beacon of light,
Mm.
Yeah. I also didn't remember. I don't remember that interaction with Logain at all, like in the later books. But since you mentioned it during our episodes, when Swan says this, I'm like, I wonder if Logain saw the same thing. Like this. I mean, it's described as virtually identical.
Yeah.
So maybe he's got that talent.
He thinks he's hiding, but no.
I mean, he should know better. This like 6'4" redhead
in the borderlands.
19-year-old. Yeah.
Blazing like the sun.
The one thing there that was quite funny is like he was kind of almost repulsed at his clothing that was made for him. Like, how am I supposed to move around in these things? But he loved the boots. He put the boots on, and they were like, "Oh, all right."
He has a thing for boots, doesn't he?
They're
Boots
good. You like those boots?
They come up a lot.
Yes, they do. They
in these
do.
books.
But he was attached to his old boots. He's like, sure, they had a couple of holes in them, but, they were still good for another couple of years and they'd already been walked in.
Yeah.
But then when he puts the new ones on, he's like, actually, I guess other boots can also be good and not have holes in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So you got
no
a good
red coats with dragons on them. No.
So his love affair with fancy shoes started.
Indeed it did. And yeah, this is the first time he gets new clothes. And from now on, that's all he wears is the finest. All these kind of crazy coats and cloaks and silk shirts. And his life starts changing here. This is the first
Yeah, he's a stylish teenager. Okay, should we go on to chapter 3 then?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do friends and enemies. Villy, take it away.
All right, now Randy's on the run, and you can't really run out of the keep because everyone knows it. And he runs into many people from the stables where he has multiple exchanges, and eventually learns that no one's allowed to leave, and he's got to stay in, and then trying to think, okay, I can get through this place, and again bumps into someone. And eventually he finds his way down into the storerooms where he's now dressed like a lord. And
My lord.
And he then gets across to Matt, busy playing dice with the common folk. And
of course he is.
Yeah, and I love this. Matt playing dice. It started.
This is key.
And
so that previously is where Rand's boot addiction begins, and this is the beginning of Matt's gambling addiction. All happened in Fal Dara.
What a place. So, and obviously Matt is not losing at dice. He's taking all the. I would imagine them as someone starting to be the bottom of the ladder, archers at the back type soldiers.
I think they're described as not soldiers. None of them have top knots. They're all sort of like servants and peasants.
They have bowl cuts, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Well, that's what I imagined.
No. But yeah, he's taking their pittance off them and not feeling sorry about it. Loyal is also there with them, parents sort of resting in the corner. and Rand dressed all lordly, and he's having a lot of sort of, again, internal conversation with himself that he has to go. He can't draw. He's carrying this burden on his shoulders that he's going to destroy everyone and kill everyone, and he just needs to get away now. Now he's pressured by this. And a bit of exchanges there between the two of them, and eventually he's saying that he has to go, but they're not quite understanding, and he can't really explain to them, and he upsets them to the point where they kind of like almost like, all right, my lord, like,
Yeah, those three, Parent, Matt, and Loyal, don't know that he can channel.
yeah, they're still in the unknown. He's been told not to tell them.
Yes.
So he can't say to them, well, look, you just, and then eventually makes the comment of, well, you just gambling in the dirt with peasants anyway. And Matt's sort of like, all right, okay, my lord, like, I'm obviously not good enough for you right now. It's kind of like a shitty moment that
It is. It really cuts deep because I think Matt even says something like, I thought we were, and then he trails off and he's
Yeah.
like, but okay, fine. If you're going to be that way.
This
then
reminded
I'll
me
go."
of Harry and the Hendersons. You see that movie?
They
Yes.
have to set him free.
Yeah, set him free at the end. Set him in because I mean, obviously he loves his friends. He doesn't want to see them hurt. He's just trying to be mean so that they will leave him. To protect them. It's not really.
I mean,
dick.
I will give Robert Jordan some leeway here because this book was written some time ago. But that has also become such a trope,
Yes.
that is so worn out. That whole, I am a danger to everyone around me, therefore I must alienate them by being a complete fucking asshole. There are other ways, surely.
It's not easy reading this section without thinking of Rand as being a bit of an asshole.
Even knowing the whole story and the background, having all the information, reading this, you're like, fuck you, Rand. That is a shitty thing to do.
Look, he's a scared 18-year-old.
Now, what you should have done is slipped out in the middle of the night 2 weeks after being back at the keep, you dumbass.
Yeah, he should have left long ago. But yeah,
I think he's 19, Joe, and we'll get to that in your chapter, I think.
Sure, why not? He's a kid. He's an idiot, and he's he doesn't know. He doesn't know any better. So that's why he made that decision. It does. We wouldn't make it at the age of 40, but he would. When we were 18 and in that situation, probably that's the easy way out. Just make them hate you and then run away.
Jody, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
That is a 40-year-old dad thing to say. There's also that scene where they're gambling because he doesn't know they're there when he enters Rand. When he's and then he's talking to Loyal or something. And they mention, I think, Matt's name, and then you just see like all these huddled heads, and then Matt's head pop up from the group, like, "Hey, someone say my name," and then Perrin's head also pops up, like, "Hey," I think that if they kept that in the TV show as well, it'll be a cool little scene. These little heads popping up. What's that now? You calling me? Is it gambling here? And Matt's luck is beginning here as well.
Yes. Well, for those who are keen to watch this series that will be unfolding next year and haven't been too bothered to read the books,
then you shouldn't be on this podcast.
There is a very, very slim sliver of the Venn diagram that you are describing there for someone that has not read the books but is listening to our podcast and is excited for the show.
Turn it off right now. Go read the books.
Oh, man. Now keep on listening. If you've made it this far, you definitely are loving it.
Yeah, come along.
Come along. So they eventually empty out the stable, the storeroom that they're in, amongst the pea bags and grain bags and all of that in the dust. And the bunch of peasants also having a little bit of, hey, give us at least a chance to win our money back type of thing. But they clear the room, and then Rand sets off.
Tell us how you really feel,
Rat. A rat. Yeah, Rat sets off, and eventually in the hallways he bumps into Egwene that he then kind of discloses to that he's going. He's got to get out of here. He can't be part of this. And the Amyrlin's there, and they're after him, and he's just got all me in his head at this stage. And then Egwene like full on confronts him about it to the point where she tackles him to the ground. And again, the description is there of her folding her arm underneath her breast in
Does she? I didn't even pick up
yes,
on that.
it's in
Okay,
there.
there
I'm
it
just
is, number
immune to
one.
it now, Bart. That's why.
Yeah.
Like those things don't even register.
And she tackles him to the ground, and he's struggling, like, get off me. But somehow she just convinced him, okay, cool, just come with me, telling him the story that she's been visiting old mate Fane down in
Old
the
mate Fane.
dungeons.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rand is now a little bit sort of taken aback by the fact that she's been visiting him, and kind of like, why are you seeing him? He's not, it's like, it's not safe. Like, this is not a good thing to do. But she's like, well, she's on the way there now, so come along for the walk and have a seat. Like, remember, he's at least seen us grow up, and he's always been there, and she still believes in the human being that's in there, even if it's that little bit, which is really not there anymore, I believe, at this stage.
I think Egwene was actually, she was looking for Rand. She wasn't on her way to Peyton Fane's cell. She was looking for Rand. And when she found him and he spoke about hiding out, she said, okay, look, the cells are a place that no one will come looking for you. So
Yeah,
let's go
that's
there.
right. Yes. So
Everybody's looking for Rand.
yeah, Rand is the most important thing. Well, everyone in Rand's head is looking for Rand. I don't think at this stage anyone's really looking for him. I don't get the feeling.
Maybe not.
Yeah, so and getting to the end of the chapter, they just going down there, and sort of the guards that sort of already know Gwyn and Grimace at Rand. I forget their two names.
Chengu and
Chingoon,
something like that. Immaterial.
and immaterial. Between the cells, there's some murders and murderers and whatever kept in there, and eventually to Fane, who's also just again very vague in his talking and descriptions, like not really releasing something, keeps staring up at the room where he then presumes the Amyrlin as in. Like, he's not really there. But what was the last thing in the saying? Something about that this is not over, Althor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kept saying that over and over.
It's yeah, and then that's the chapter leave. I mean, there's really not a great load of excitement in there.
But there is something in that chapter about his presence is starting to corrupt those around him. Like the guards are getting grumpier and meaner and rude because
I think Egwene says the first time she goes there, one of the guards used to sing.
yeah.
Like he was like a really jovial guy. And now he's like awful. He's like making terrible jokes at their expense. He's like, she notices a marked change in both of their behaviors and in that of the other prisoners.
Yeah.
And remember, Moiraine, when she finds Matt in the Queen's Blessing, she explains to them that Matt, while just walking around, would have infected people around him with a madness that eventually would drive them to only want to kill.
Yeah.
So you can see that effect like just radiating off Fane. Just the mere fact that he's there, and probably like he's probably having conversations with people at times and planting little things in their ear and that sort of thing. And that madness that took down all of Aradol, one of the great cities, is now at work in Fal Dara.
For sure. There's a specific mention is the Shanarians are a hard people, but they're very wrapped up in honor and in keeping what's the word I'm looking for now, in courtesy and things like that. You know, they always got
chivalry,
like on my honor and may your sword be blessed and blah, 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 all these kind of things. So for them to be rude is really weird. It's really out of character. And these two guards are downright rude to Rand when he walks in.
Yeah.
I completely looked over that. I was just kind of the impression that if you are the type of person that watches the dungeon, you're kind of this hunchback.
Generally not a happy guy.
Not a happy guy, one eye missing probably, and you growl a lot at everything and anything.
I think Rand even makes an observation about how even Massima isn't rude. He's just sort of like curt, or like he draws a comparison between the behavior of these guards, and he calls back to Massima, who was one of the guards guarding the dog gate when he was trying to get out of the keep, saying sort of like, and we know how Massima becomes. Like he becomes a complete maniac, and he is quote unquote better behaved than these prison guards.
That's right. Yes,
that's the first time we meet Massima. He's guarding the gate with Reagan, who was there who was there when they arrived. That is the first
Yeah.
guy that spoke to Lan. And
Yeah.
Massima mentions Uno as well.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Uno gave me the orders. Like, I know all these guys. Sweet.
Yeah. Uno
Yeah.
with one eye.
Uno with one eye. Aptly named.
Yeah. And like swears all the time.
Yes.
I've got a note here. Massima is already a jerk.
He was born a jerk.
And also in the room in which Matt's gambling with the peasants, they talk about Loyal and his height, almost reaching the rafters that were 2 spans up.
So he's 3.6
2 spans
meters.
above their heads or 2 spans from the ground?
No, the rafters are 2 spans high. If it's 1.6 and 1.6, it's 3.2 meters high. But I mean, they're sort of vague in the description, but it is certainly not. The rafters aren't 44 centimeters off the ground.
Okay, confirmation. Phew, I've been having sleepless nights about this. So definitely. Great, thanks, Moritz. And also there's a point where Rand is like being a dick to get rid of them, and he does it to Loyal, and when Loyal leaves, all the other Shenarians are looking at him, have gone quiet, and are looking at going like, you don't speak to one of the builders like that. Like, utter shock and disgust for Rand. Like,
they are aghast.
How dare you?
Yes.
He's an
and
alien.
rightfully so.
He's really coming across as a lord jerk at this point in time.
Yeah. In one of Rand's internal monologues, he, when he's talking about how, like, none of this would have happened, he sort of straight up blames Moiraine for Perrin's eyes and for Matt getting the dagger at Shadow Logoth. And then sort of comes around to it at the end again, saying, well, look, if they weren't around on Winter Night, they probably would have been dead in Eamon's Field right now. Like, there would have been no dagger, no Shadow Logoth. But Rand's opinion of Moiraine is definitely taking strain. Like, the fact that she's ignoring him and the fact that all this stuff has sort of happened since he linked up with her and Lan means that he's not holding her in very high regard at the moment.
Well, he's a teenager that had this ageless, beautiful woman seek him out for so long over half the country to then find him and bring him into this glorious battle and then ignore him completely.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being sought out at the dance by the beautiful girl, and then they find you, and then you have the dance, and the next morning you watch your phone and there's no text. Nothing's coming.
Totally like that, Billy.
It's like you're describing a chapter from my life.
I think I'm describing a chapter from all our lives there.
Yes.
What, seriously, a bunch of nerds that prefer to read and talk about fantasy novels never had girls. What?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say never, but I might have tried to talk some of them into reading The Wheel of Time, and then that would explain the lack of text the next day.
I talked my wife into reading The Wheel of Time.
And look at you now, 3 healthy sons.
Yes, It worked. Thank you, Robert.
Well, just to share this one into our private lives today, Jody sent us a photograph of his son opening up The Eye of the World and starting to read it today.
Yeah, he's 11.
What a glorious day.
This is a glorious day.
This is a shout out to Jude, my son. That book is now been in your possession that I bought you on the 22nd of June. Time to open up that boy.
Read it, Jude.
Maybe we can do a special episode where we bring in the kids to talk about their experience.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Danny actually mentioned when he was reading that the prologue to book 1, going, ooh, I really like this. Betrayer of Hope. That sounds cool. I was like, sweet dude, you're only just starting.
No, Danny. Also, that's the dark side. That's not the cool name. That's the bad name.
Yeah, it was at lunchtime. I was giving him a whole breakdown of book 1 because he was asking me like, "What's this podcast you're doing?" So, and he was just like, "What? Whoa, that's amazing!
Yeah.
Wow!" So
I mean,
right. He has the book.
I think I was 10 or 11 when I read The Hobbit the first time, and that set me off on my fantasy quest, so to speak.
I was watching a podcast.
Continues to this day.
Watching a YouTube video from another, I can't remember who now, and he was saying, if you want to read some other good books, read The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. As he said, he picked it up when he was 8 years old. And I was like, holy shit, you were reading The Dragonbone Chair at 8 years old? That's... So, I mean, The Wheel of Time at 11 is not bad. It's all right.
No. Did you guys have anything else from that chapter?
No, just Rand's a jerk, and he's got a nice red coat on.
I've got a note here, like, who is following Rand? Because Rand definitely feels eyes on him, and like we said, Leandrin does later again.
Yeah.
This section of Rand and Egwene talking to Paden Fane in the cell, and him looking up towards where the Amyrlin Seat is. I mean, we know in a later chapter that the Horn of Valir is also in the room with her, but there's no dagger there. There's none of the boys are there, and there's no dagger. So does Paden Fane have some other abilities? Like, is he just looking at channelers? Is he able to, look at things that are not around him? And is that what Rand and Leandrin are feeling?
I think he has already at that stage had his instruction on what was going to happen in the future chapters, and not to bring in any
Who,
sort of
Paden Fane?
Paden Fane, yes. And
Well, he knows that he's going to be set free.
yeah, and that he's going to have to get the horn. Like, that's the focus for him. So maybe it's
Right.
he's
Okay.
drawn to the horn.
Maybe.
Because in all his previous chapters, in previous books as well,
Because after all, he's a hound.
yeah, he's always looking through walls and looking up at nothing. He's always looking at the dagger.
Yes. Matt has the dagger in the storeroom.
Yeah, but aren't the dungeons below the storeroom? Like, the dungeons would be the
They
lowest
are, but I
point, so
think Rand mentioned specifically that he would be looking up at the female apartments where the Amyrlin would be.
Yeah, he makes a specific reference to that.
okay.
And also, we just have this thing with Leandrin also feeling eyes on her. You get the sense that it is not just a weird feeling they have, like someone is watching them. Now, I have not read anything about this, but I know that at some point there's a Trolloc attack, or Trollocs and Shadowspawn come into Fal Dara.
Yeah.
So
There
at
is a
some
fade
point,
there. So it might
there
be a
could
fade.
be a fade there. Yeah.
No, there is a fade there, most certainly.
Oh, right.
Yes,
There
I've read
you
one
go.
more chapter after this, and definitely a fade.
Okay, well, there we go. I mean, that could very well be it. Right?
Yeah, but she
Yes.
feels a tingling on her skin, and that to me signifies channeling. Like, there's another channeler. She can feel another woman channeling.
But she doesn't say, because it's in her head, she doesn't say she senses someone channel.
No, but she does feel a tingling on her skin. Is that not a side effect or one of the things that you feel?
They can sense, I think so, yes. And I think specifically later in the books, they really harp on the fact that men can feel a tingling in their skin when women
Yes.
channel around them.
That's what I thought. I might be confusing the two.
Women can also sense each other channeling. And I think even here, when Swan wards the office that she has the conversation with Moiraine in, I think Moiraine also feels a tingling on his skin.
Yeah.
But both Rand and Leandrin have a tingling and then eyes on them.
Yeah.
Like, they both say that someone is watching them, not someone is channeling near them.
All right.
So, I don't know.
Maybe the being so close to the blight, the dark one has got the ability
That's too convenient,
to even
Lan.
Strange things happen this close to the blade.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally inconsequential.
Well, yeah, I've never not believed Lan at all.
Yeah. He's a pretty stand-up guy.
Also, reading about Fane, something that I wanted to mention last week but completely forgot to, is that when I bought that big white book, I was reading up about Paden Fane, and I've also been reading online about him a bit. It seems like when more death consumes a person or a host, right, and he becomes or like possesses them, he takes over that personality completely. But he couldn't do that with Paden Fane because of the stuff that the Dark One had done to Paden Fane. So he couldn't push the Dark One's influence out of him to take over. All he could do was merge. And then Paden Fane himself also has this hatred of the Dark One because of all the stuff that was done to him. And that's sort of like, I think they described it as like it joined caustically with Mordeth's hate of the Dark One and the Aes Sedai. So it's like this, he's this weird entity that is special purely by virtue of the very, very specific set of circumstances that brought all of these influences together. So he's not one or the other. He's this thing in the middle, and that's why he ends up acting with such autonomy. I also read somewhere that somehow in the cells here, he has actually sort of rid himself of the ties that the Dark One has on him. But I mean, I don't remember that at all, and I certainly haven't read anything up until
Well,
this point
he
about that.
really breaks loose in this book. He becomes quite vicious, and
There's a scene when they rock. I mean, I know we're jumping ahead here, but it's cool to reminisce about and see how wrong I am. But isn't there a scene where people rock up in a town and they find a fade, like spiked to a door?
Yes.
through his eyes, spikes
Yes.
through his eyes, nailed to a door.
Whoa. Now that you mention that, I remember it.
I wonder if that's where Brandon Sanderson got his inspiration for the Mistborn. Or those dudes with the metal spikes through their eyes.
Well, that's the next series I'm rereading.
Mm-hmm. And what we'll be podcasting about.
Ah.
Okay, that's all from me. I promise.
All right.
Yeah, there's not a lot in there, but there was enough for us to carry on with.
That's the last thing I want to do is talk more about this book. Jesus, Martz.
Joe, do I have bad news for you? Okay, so then chapter 4 is just called Summoned. We join Moiraine preparing for her audience with the Amyrlin Seat. She's musing to herself. She doesn't seem to know why Swan would have come herself. And they also hint in this little section at Moraine's sort of noble lineage from Caerhine. And she's sort of busy preparing when she hears this loud and insistent knocking on the door. She goes to open the door and she's met by two Aes Sedai, Leandrin and Anaya. Now, Anaya is another blue and an old friend of Moiraine's. So immediate connection there. But Leandrin is a red, and in typical Robert Jordan style, like we have said from the very beginning, he is making no bones about the fact that this is someone that you should not like, right? I mean, she's got like a petulant face. She's not acknowledging any of the servants that are bowing to her, while Anaya and Moiraine are nodding their head to people. She's rude. She's, as we know now, she's off the Black Arger. She's terrible. She also, I don't know if this is actually in the book, but I get the sense that she's younger than the others. Like she's younger than Anaya and Moiraine both.
I think she's maybe 200 years old.
Yeah, she's only 200. I think it's because of the way her face is described, like a doll face. Maybe. It just gives you the impression that she's younger. I don't know her age though.
Yeah. Anyway, she's cold and self-important and just a total cow. So Leandra makes a comment about the room being warded and the fact that they can't come in. And Moiraine sort of just covers it up by saying, look, it's warded against anyone coming in here, not you specifically. But that got me thinking, like, aren't there other instances later in the books? I cannot think of a specific one, but other instances where it would have been useful for someone to weave something that prevents other channelers from entering rooms and stuff. This sounds like
a handy skill to have.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we won't dwell on that. So they're there to accompany Moiraine to her audience. So as they're walking down the hall, Anaya and Moiraine are sort of catching up. Like I said, all the servants are coming around and curtsying and bowing, and the two blues are acknowledging them, and Leandrin is being a bitch about it. And Moiraine asks them, like what news have I missed? What's been happening? So they tell her about the fact that there are currently 3 false dragons loose in the world, and that one of them can actually channel, and that's obviously Mazrim Taim in Saldaya, and they just refer to him as the one in Saldaya. Moiraine asks if anyone has had any foretellings at the tower, sort of like nervously prodding to see if anyone said anything about the dragon, being here now. And they say no one's had a foretelling, but we know that Elida's had a foretelling.
Yeah.
That she might not have shared with anyone else.
She's not the sharing kind.
No. But Moiraine is asking about that because I'm pretty sure, I haven't read A New Spring in a long time, but in A New Spring, the Amyrlin Seat, or the Keeper, or some higher ranking.
The Amyrlin Seat, I think it was.
I think it's the Amyrlin Seat. She has a foretelling as Rand is born and then drops dead.
Yes.
and that's what sets Moiraine and Swan off, because they're novices together at that point, or accepted.
They were in the room.
They were in the room.
That's it. And that set off their quest that, we'll elaborate on when you get to that part.
Isn't that just, sorry to interject there, but isn't that just such a chance situation that Swan and Moiraine are novices? that set up all of this, and they were just by chance in the room when that foretelling happened, when Rand was born.
Again, strengthening my theory that Moiraine is the true hero of the story. She saves everyone by directing this fucking emotional teenager through hell and high water, enduring captivity from the Elfin and Eelfin, and then seeing it through to the end. I mean,
And Rand would not have been there if it was not for Bella.
Yeah. I disagree.
Yeah.
Bella is the true hero of the story.
it's one of those two, Bella or Moiraine.
Yes.
So they say no one's had a foretelling or anything, but then they also run into Lady Amelisa, Lord Agelmar's sister. She runs into them in the hallway, and they make a big scene here, probably to set up the later scene with Leandrin. But Moiraine and Anaya both saying, like they refer to her as sister, and they talk to her, and sort of they're doing away with the old formalities and the sort of pomp and ceremony of dealing with an Aes Sedai, which just grates Leandrin. She just wants no part of that. She obviously likes being put on a pedestal. And then in other news, I mean, they talk to
in other news,
but they talk to Lady Amelisa, and she basically makes her way off, as they say they have to go see the Amyrlin. But they make mention of the fact that there were riots in Camelin that have now died down, and that Elaine and Gawain have arrived at the tower, and that the Great Hunt has been called in Ilion. And that it's been 400 years since the last Great Hunt.
Yes.
I thought this was an annual event.
No.
Wasn't
Clearly
maybe
not.
like the Olympics every 4 years, but no. Every 400
It's like the
years.
Olympics, but every 400 years, yes.
One hell of an Olympics.
There's talk of Aes Sedai that are embedded within the sea folk, and that the sea folk are sort of like talking about their Coromur all of a sudden, like it's happening. The Aiel are stirring, but who knows what the Aiel are doing. Of course, the Aiel and the sea folk have their own versions of the Dragon Reborn prophecy that they are, sort of seeing the signs for.
Even the Sean-Chan have their own version.
They do.
But they control that one, obviously. They control everything.
Obviously. Fuck, I hate those guys. Then Leandrin sort of offhandedly mentions Elmeth Plain, which prompted me to go quickly look at the map again, because now we're talking a lot about Aradoman and Tarabon and Elmeth Plain. And the Elmeth Plain is huge.
Yeah.
It's a massive... It's like... It's bigger than Amerdisia, which is a country right next to it.
It's bigger than most countries.
It's bigger than most of them.
I've got the map. I printed it out and put it up in front of me right now.
I see you looking up. Is it up on the wall?
It's on the wall in front of me, yeah. Like, Elmeth Plain is bigger than a lot of the countries, especially the southern countries.
That last battle in this book happens there at Falm, right? Like at Falme or Falm, whatever.
Falme for me.
Is it? Okay.
But that may be the Falme. The French going, I don't know.
Hey, I always read it as flame, so.
All right. Well,
now, Billy, don't take this the wrong way. But are you dyslexic?
Yes, I am.
Okay. That explains it.
Look, I only felt confident asking that question because I think you have actually told me that in the past.
All right.
So that everything makes a lot of sense now.
Yes, but I mean, your pronunciations are both entertaining, but also impressive, considering the fact that you are dyslexic. So, Anaya sort of plays that down. She says, "Oh, okay, look, just before we left the White Tower, there were these sort of rumors and whispers of, trouble on the Elmeth Plain," and Moiraine plays it down to saying, "Oh, it's probably, Aradoman and Tarabon, who
fighting over it,
have traditionally fought over it, and they've fought over it for like the last 300 years, but it's never come to open blows or anything."
That goes back to your lack of communication theory.
That's exactly one of the things that
a giant invasion force has landed.
Yes,
in Falme, on Tommen's head.
Jerry, Arthur Hawkwing's armies have returned.
It's just a rumor.
I heard a whisper.
Yeah.
So anyway, by the time that all this is said and done, they arrive at the rooms where the Amyrlin Seat is based, And so they enter sort of like an antechamber or like a waiting room before you get into the thing. And there's 5 Aes Sedai in there. One of them is Varen.
Hey,
So this
Baron.
is your first mention of Varen, the plump
Shout out.
brown who's sort of got a nose buried in books, who is actually of the Black Aja, as you now know, Villy.
Mm.
I am I did not know that, because Varen had always had a little bit of a sweet spot with, she was
Yes,
brown,
and I
stuck
think
into learning. She was so interested in the going back to the fate that Fane
yes,
nailed to the wall, like needing to study that and
mm.
all of that. And I'm just like,
in this
wow,
room as they walk in, she doesn't even notice
Notice.
Moiraine. She's sitting there drawing a flower in her
Yeah,
book. She's got a
yeah,
bunch
yeah.
of flowers on her lap, and she's got a book balanced on. But the reveal of her affiliation with the Black Aja is, I think, very, very late in the game, and it's a big surprise to everybody. But in it, she also, I think she gives Rand a letter that he's not supposed to open until a certain time or something. There's like a cool sort of reveal
Double plot
mechanism
twist.
around that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very cool when it happens, and sorry to spoil it for you.
No, that's all right. At the rate I'm going and reading at the moment, I'm definitely going to get there soon.
Yeah, you're going to keep ahead of most of the spoilers. Some of the other Aes Sedai that are in there are, is it Sarafel? Is a yellow, whose name I recognize, but I cannot place her. I don't know if she maybe plays a bigger role later in Saladar or somewhere, or if she's a sitter or something like that. But she's a name that I recognize, that she doesn't pay Moiraine much attention. But so is Alana. Alana Mosvani is in there. And she's the green that bonds Rand as a warder. And she and Varen actually travel together quite a bit.
I'm very fond of Alana.
Are you? I always found her extremely annoying. When you meet her proper, like when I think she's in Eamon's Field at one point and hiding out there with Varen, and some of her warders had been killed, and she's like an emotional wreck. She's just crying all the time, and like she's just a complete lust.
They
and then she does.
They do bed their warders, so come on.
Okay, well, that's one thing. And then they also have this intensely intimate bond with them in the water bond. So, okay, I get it, but I didn't want to read about it all the time. I get it. Sad Aes Sedai, got it. So then, and then she does this fucking bizarre thing where she just, reaches out and bonds Rand against his will. And then from then on, he's got this sort of like, he can sense where she is and she can sense where he is, sort of thing, even though he leaves her behind.
I remember that actually now.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, actually, the more you talk about it, the less I like her, Martz. Maybe
I mean, what about her did you like?
I don't remember much about her.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, she's a green, and I like most of the greens by default.
Yeah, they're definitely the best.
So anyway, they're there, and then while they're in the room, Leanne comes through from another set of doors, obviously Leanne being the keeper of the seals. She's a character that I've always liked. She remains loyal to Swan through thick and thin, and they both get stilled obviously later when Swan is deposed, and they still stick together, and she and Swan are both healed by Nynaeve to get the ability to channel back.
But not back to full power.
Swan is very weak, I think.
Yeah, but it's Nynaeve can't heal stilled women back to their full power. She can heal them. No. It's Flynn Dharma from the Black Tower. He can do it.
Yes.
You remember him? He becomes like a huge...
Well, he's the one. He heals Logain.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, dear.
I think he heals men.
I think he can heal women too. But anyway, we'll find out soon enough.
We can talk about this for ages.
Imagine that. What a bizarre idea.
So Leanne comes in and she goes, "Look, I mean, you're late. You need to come talk to the Amyrlin." And when she gets in there, Swan has the horn on her desk, or the case that the horn is in on her desk, and that sort of bugs Moiraine. Last she saw that was locked up in a strong room, like that's where it's supposed to be. So then Swan starts talking to Moiraine. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's basically about like the sort of the undercurrents of what's happening at the tower. One thing that is happening is that because Elaine and Gawain have now arrived at the White Tower, Elida has accompanied them. Right, so she's come from Caemlyn, leaving Morghese alone in Caemlyn without Aes Sedai council. And Moiraine is sort of saying like, maybe this is not the best time for Morghese not to have Aes Sedai council in this time where people are sort of like trying to cause a rift between Andor and the tower.
And rioting in the streets of Caemlyn.
Yeah. openly proclaiming their disdain for the White Tower by wearing those different color sword bindings and
Bandanas.
bandanas and stuff. But what has transpired now is that Elida, being a red, the Reds have taken credit for finding Elaine, who is very strong in the one power. And while it shouldn't, it's this unspoken rule that, strength in the power has this unspoken pecking order between the Aes Sedai. And it's lending credibility to the Reds, and it's sort of emboldening them to, speak up in the hall and, gather support from other Arjas to sort of question the authority of the Blues. We also learn here that the Reds have an intense disliking of the Blues because only 2 Amyrlins have ever been pulled down by the Aes Sedai, and they were both Reds, and they were both replaced by Blues.
That's in my chapter.
Sorry. And so okay, so let me check it. Let me not step on your toes, Joe. I've got some notes about some of the stuff that Swan says. So when Swan is saying about the Reds being emboldened by finding Elaine, Moraine's like, don't worry, I found 2 channelers in Eamon's Field. Egwene, the girl, is at least as strong as Elaine is, and the other one will make them both look like a candle next to a bonfire, like just saying Nynaeve is super powerful. Don't worry about it. We've got the power balance well and truly covered.
That's
and she also says that neither of them will take the red because they're both amused by men.
Almost a little bit of insight that the game of houses is even being played within the Arjas.
Yes. Those rifts between the Arjas are plain as daylight here.
Yeah, there's quite a few descriptions, like the Browns being stuck in their books and couldn't realize the world outside of them if they happen, and
the stereotypes are laid on thick throughout the series, right? The Reds all hate men. The Greens are all, promiscuous. The Whites are cold logic machines. The Browns are total academics. All that stuff is repeated over and over again, like much of the other stuff, which in my mind only cements it. Like, I can chuckle at the stereotypes, but it does solidify those lines for you, because we are dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of actual named characters here. So being able to infer specific character traits based on the color of the clothing they're wearing is useful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what I was saying in the beginning of this podcast about the change in tone. Like, book 1 was very superficial. Like, we don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes. We only first person, these guys must go there and defeat a Dark One. Now we're getting into the real behind the scenes politics and the Aes Sedai, which is very interesting, and later on in books becomes very boring. But there is, like, book 10 can be eliminated from this timeline completely and would make no
book
difference
10 is my
to the
low
story.
point.
Yeah, it's everyone's low point. Just, don't even read it. But so there's a good bunch, like a good section of this, and especially in the earlier books when you start learning about behind the scenes and how the tower works and the different conflicts. I thought this is going to be very interesting, this book.
Yeah. So where were we? Swan still still talking in front of Leanne, so being very official. She says to Moiraine that something else that she heard from Elida is that Moiraine is traveling with a very dangerous Taveran youth, that being Rand, obviously, because Elida met Rand in Camelin. And Moiraine just sort of like plays it down. She says, I'm traveling with 3 young men from a small town, and none of them have aspirations to be a king at all, giving a very Aes Sedai sort of blithe answer. Then Swan keeps complaining about the politics in the tower, saying that in the hall, some sitters had actually insinuated that, that thing about her and Leanne being blue, which goes against all tradition, but even questioned openly whether Swan should be leaving the tower at all, when the oaths make them accept the orders of the Amyrlin Seat without question. They are actually openly questioning whether she is fit to act in that capacity. They're also saying things like Moiraine should not be trusted. She needs to be reined in. But at that point, Swan then dismisses Leanne and says, okay, Leanne, I will have a word with Moiraine alone now. And that's when she channels, and Moiraine feels a bit of channeling, and she wards the room against anyone listening in. And at that point, they have a nice big hug. Like good friends that haven't seen each other in a long time. And it is a bit of a relief when you read it the first time. It's like, oh, okay, good, cool. This super powerful political figure that, you've been reading about, like all the custom and stuff of them being there. Now everyone's freaked out that the Amyrlin Seat is there, is hugging this person that you have come to trust and is like integral to the story.
BFFs.
It gives it gives you a bit of relief.
Now, was it before then or after that the discussion was brought up that they want the Ungreal back that she has with
That's
her?
after.
After.
It's
okay.
after, it's in Jodie's chapter, I think.
All right.
Jesus, guys, leave something for me.
Well, these two chapters lead directly into each other, so
yeah,
it is
it's
a bit of
the same scene, just broken up into 2 chapters.
Yes. But Swan does also in this chapter still hint at with their plan. Like she's talking about, like, our plan. And if anyone had to catch wind of what we would be doing, we will both be stilled, and rightfully so.
Ooh, stilling.
And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, not good things could happen. But yeah, they are best buddies, and it's good to see them back together again. And if you've read The New Spring, then you see how far back that relationship goes. They've been friends from when they were novices. And they were
I have the New Spring graphic novel. I'm going to go read that tomorrow.
I found those. I was looking through my bookshelf. Holy shit, I've got the New Spring graphic novel, and I've got like the first 5 of The Eye of the World.
Really? I didn't even
Yeah.
know they made Eye of the World graphic novels.
I remember you bought those like years ago.
I was looking, it's like 2008 or something.
Mm.
No, the company went under. I was finding old emails of me bitching or complaining because I paid in advance for all of them, and then the company went under, and they never sent me the rest. So I've only have like the first 5.
Was it Dark Horse? Was it Dark Horse Comics?
No. I forget what it was called. Dable Brothers? Dable Brothers.
Oh, yes.
They went
That rings a
under.
bell.
Jody, you seem to have had bad luck with ordering Wheel of Time related content.
Hey, no, I found book 4.
You lost. You didn't get the sword.
I didn't get my sword, no. Swords are, I don't know, they're unavailable.
I have now managed to scrounge all the books except for book 6 and the last book.
Oh, I've got all
Yeah,
those.
I'm not scrounging. I'm just hitting the button on Amazon and get the late little printed book, and then there we go. Because I know that's going to happen. I'm going to have to reorder them at some point in time in my life again.
I've owned multiple copies of most of the books.
Yeah, I've got a few copies lying around as well. I'm going to donate all the paperbacks I've got to the library, and when I get all my hardcovers.
Kids, if you're listening to this, do not lend your books to people.
No. Kids, if you're listening to this, don't listen to Villy. Lend your books to people, get more people to read it, and then also direct them to this podcast. Thank you.
Oh, well, that works as well.
We don't have a lot to say about this chapter, do we? I mean, a lot of exposition, a lot of hints at things. The people arriving in Tarabon or in Ibudar. That's basically it. I mean, we get introduced to Leandrin, and you get the sense that Swan and Moiraine are working on something behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's a lot of bringing up of big topics and a lot of downplaying of big topics.
Yes. So let's just roll straight on into the last chapter so we can wrap this thing up.
Yeah, because this is a meaty chapter.
Yes, there's actually in the tail end of this chapter, you see a couple of cool glimpses as well. So, Joe, why don't you get us started on chapter 5, Shadow in Shinar?
There we go. I get a cool chapter name, finally. So with this chapter actually picks up right where we left off. We're still there with Moiraine and Swan. And the word stilled is hanging in the air. And we learn that, listen, not many Aes Sedai have been stilled. So few, in fact, that the novices of the tower have to learn their names and what their crimes were and everything. So it's like part of the history. So it's not, they don't just still you for no reason whatsoever.
No.
It's very uncommon, and it's a last resort kind of a thing. And they just, they continue discussing the prophecies and how, they kind of like they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't scenario. They're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, just to throw out as many of those as possible. They're like, if they help the dragon, they're going to be stilled. And if they don't help him, then they've been helping worse. The world's going to end, like they just might as well just carry on with what they've been doing anyway. Yeah. And also find out that, because they were talking about the consequences of getting caught, that they would both be stilled, obviously. And maybe Moiraine will be sent away or something. But the Amyrlin never does, and it's happened before. And they normally keep these Amyrlins around and leave them as scullery maids and cleaners in the tower. It's like an example to everybody. It's like even the highest and mightiest can fall. So, be on your toes. And they talk about 2 since the breaking of the world, or I don't remember. So yeah, I think the breaking of the world
Maybe,
that
yeah.
have been stripped of staff and stole. And one of them was Tetsuan, who betrayed Elisande from Manetherin because she was jealous of her. So that battle we spoke about in book 1, where the Trollocs invaded, they were betrayed by the Amyrlin Seat at the time because of her jealousy.
It was a red.
Who was a red. Why aren't there any reds anymore in power? Now you know why. And also
Fucking reds.
betrayed by another one, or betrayed, sorry. The next Amyrlin Seat that was disposed was Bonwyn, who tried to control Arthur Hawkwing and get him to do her bidding. But that obviously didn't work out too well. And they were both of the red, and they were both replaced by blues, like you annexed earlier. So there's this thing between the reds and the blues, and have been for thousands of years. The reds are trying to get back in power, and the blues obviously are trying to keep power. And but that's what's going on behind the scenes, amongst other things in the White Tower. Yeah. So they're discussing their 20-year plan. Moritz, didn't you say something about 19 years, or it comes up?
Well, that's exactly why I said that, because they're talking about a plan that they set in motion almost 20 years ago.
Ah.
And their plan started when Rand was born.
The night he was born, yeah. Okay.
So
Rand is almost 20. All right. No,
19 something.
That's sound fantasy mathematics right there.
Something else you just mentioned, Joe, about the 2 Amyrlins that were pulled down and made as scullery maids. They couldn't let them go out into the world because Swan's saying, Moiraine, you might just be stilled and you can go out into the world, but I will be kept around as an example.
Yeah.
And I will be put like those other 2. I will be made to scrub pots and floors because no one can rally around someone that scrubs pots and floors.
Yeah.
But as we know, Egwene does exactly that. When she's a novice in the White Tower, when she's abducted or taken from Saladar to the White Tower, she's made a novice again, and she does exactly that. She has the whole tower rally around her eventually to take charge, and that is the only reason I bring that up now. Probably my favorite part of the whole series.
We've already chosen our favorite moment for the whole series. Done.
Egwene's stint in the White Tower and how she applies the stuff that she learned from the Aiel about embracing pain. Like, you remember she almost breaks Sheriam, who the Mistress of Novice is like trying to like beat the shit out of her to teach her a lesson, and she just does not buckle. She embraces the pain. And like the other novices are almost like, whoa, look at this woman, like look what she's doing, like, and then they actually start rallying behind her. So this little thing that Swan says here about not being able to rally around someone scrubbing pots and pans is foreshadowing for Egwene's eventual rise to power in the White Tower proper.
So the Aes Sedai are wrong. Wow, that's never happened before. So yeah, this arrogance thing, this like your downfall is your arrogance, is a theme amongst all Aes Sedai, whether they work for the Dark One or not. Yeah. So anyway, they're talking about their plan and how that's been, and how Moiraine has just disregarded everything. Like, you were supposed to bring him to Tar Valon. You were not supposed to. Now we find him here in Fal Dara. You've taken him into the fucking Blight. And, and Moraine's like, the pattern just does whatever it wants. Our plan has gone to shit. Like, best laid plans, whatever. You can do whatever you want. He's Ta'Veren. He's with a bunch of Ta'Veren. The pattern is weaving its own plan. We're just along for the ride.
Swan decided to come down to Fal Dara herself, or go up to Fal Dara herself from the White Tower because of like the stuff that you just listed out. She doesn't even know that Rand has come face to face with 3 of the Forsaken.
Yeah. A lot of that comes out in this chapter, and Moiraine doesn't tell her everything. Still, like even though they are best buddies from life, she doesn't give her all the details.
She can't let Swan know because then that's someone else that can't lie about it.
Yes.
But at this point as well, Moiraine has also hidden the dragon banner.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does come out later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is that we go back to that gold box that's on the table with the horn of Valyr in it, and Swan opens it. It's got some sort of, one of those, Chinese trick boxes or whatever. You got to open it in some fancy way. And it's just been specially designed for the horn that fits in it specifically. And she says that Angelmar has, the second she saw him, he shoved it in her hands, like, get this out of my way, because it's kind of like the one ring of power, like
Totally.
it wants to corrupt. Everybody wants to use it. He wants to use it to go into the Blight and destroy the Dark One, like call the heroes from the past. But one of the things specifically about the prophecy is that it should not be blown for glory, but for salvation. And he knows, because he's such a good oak, he's such an honorable man, that he's doing it for glory, because he would love to be the one to take down the Dark One. So he knows that he must get rid of it, so he just shoves it in her hands, and that's why she has it. And that's why when Moiraine entered, she saw it. She was a bit just taken aback that it's there, but Angelmar just couldn't hold on to it anymore. And there's already rumors spreading through the keep that something is in the lock, in the safe.
Yeah.
So it's time for that thing to get the fuck out of here. We don't want it here anymore.
Yeah.
And the engravings in the old tongue is, "The grave is no bar to my call," which will come up again later on. So the prophecies also state that it'll only be found just in time for the last battle. So she's not very happy to hear that, and she's like, "Is it really that close? Like, are we that close to the last battle?" And yep, we are.
That is just pretty convenient, though.
What?
That as it's all set off, and as the Forsaken are set free, and you have the battle at the Eye of the World, that there we go. There's the horn waiting for you as well. It has started. It's kind of like,
it's Taverin, dude. It's the pattern.
It's the prophecy. It's meant to be.
It's weaving towards Tom and Gaidon.
Indeed it is. And they mentioned that the first time we hear Mazrim Taim mentioned by name, the Saldaean, and they're talking about all the false dragons, and like whether or not, like, is there a genuine fear that there's so many dragons popping up everywhere that the real dragon is going to be gentled before the last battle. Like, what do we do then if we fuck this plan, And Moraine's like, "No, listen, it's not going to happen. Like, I've already found him, by the way. This is Mazrim and this Logain. They were false dragons. At the moment, there's 3 others running around. Like, the pattern is just spitting out dragons everywhere. So, like, the horn has been found. The seals have broken." She also, at this point, drops the Quendiyar seal on Swan's table as well.
You mean broken. The Calendalar?
Calendalar.
It's a sword that's not a sword made of heartstone.
Yes. The heartstone seal broken onto her, and she's like, "Well, look, shit is happening. It's time for the last battle." And Swan says, like, "Yes, I saw your dragon reborn when I entered the courtyard, and I looked around the people. I saw him blazing like the sun, and we learn of her skill to her talent, at least, to see Taverin." So Moraine's plan is now to, she's like, "Well, our plan's fucked. It's gone. All right. New plan. 20 years of planning gone. New plan. We're just going to let him go." Because Swan's like, "Yes, we'll coddle him like a baby and swaddle him and protect him." And she's like, no. We're just going to let him go out into the world. And we'll get him far away. Like, I've burnt his clothes, and I'm going to like cleanse his aura or whatever she's going to do. So no one can track him, and we'll just send him south, because my new plan is to send Perrin, and Matt will just join him, because Matt will just go anywhere really for an adventure. These kids want to see the world. We'll send them with the horn down to Ilion, and then they'll convince Rand to go with, and then these boys will be traveling together as safe as they could possibly be. They're not going to be safe in any circumstances, to send them down to Ilion with the horn to go give it to the Council of the Nine or whatever. And Moiraine is going to go too, but separately. And she's going to get there, and she's going to make sure that everything goes to plan. Again,
right.
You haven't thought about Matt, have you? No, you've included Matt in your plan. So there goes your plan.
Your first mistake.
Yeah, mistake number 1. And and she does mention that that Matt has the dagger from Shadar Logoth. Swan's like, "What? What have you been doing?
Why were you at Shadar Logoth?
Why did you take them there?" And and what's his name? Fane is down in the dungeons. I brought him as well. And she even says, like, what if Mordeth had taken something out there? And he's like, "Oh, well, yeah." Him too.
We kind of did do that.
He's downstairs. So yeah, and all these things. And he also mentions, like, we can cleanse him. Like, I've done what I can with Matt to protect the taint from spreading. and I wanted to take him to the tower to get him properly healed, but there's enough Aes Sedai here with my Ungreal that we can all do it now. And we don't have to take him.
My Ungreal.
Yes. And then she's like, so I was like, yeah, that Ungreal that you're talking about, we want it back now. The Hall of the Sitters is asking about it. And this is that we learned, like, they kind of their power, their grip on it is slipping a bit. There's a lot of dissent in the hall against Swan. Like, why isn't she doing more about Moiraine? And where the fuck is Moiraine? And why has she been gone for so long? And why is Swan not doing anything about it? And there's a lot of questioning going on. She's, it's time for a new plan, really. It's time to move on.
You can just imagine at that stage, Swan sitting there, hearing everything that Moiraine has done, and thinking, like, what the fuck, mate? Like, what about me? Like, I wanted a bit of this as well.
It's like 30% of what's happened. I don't think she mentions the Forsaken. She doesn't mention... No, none of that.
Death of the Green Man, none of that stuff.
None of that
stuff. Swan says to Moiraine that the Hall is saying things of Moiraine like she's considered unreliable, and Moraine's response to that is, they'll think worse of me before I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, they ain't seen nothing yet.
not at all bothered by upsetting the Hall. This is like, well, this is the beginning. They're gonna hate me by the end.
Yeah, and they will, and they do.
And they do.
Yeah. So the thing is, as well, like, the plan is basically to get Rand down to Ilion with his buddies so that he can deliver the horn, and then proclaim himself the dragon and start his journey as the dragon with the support of Ilion and an army behind his back, so that he doesn't just pop up in the middle like these other dragons and then try to gather the villagers randomly. Like, he starts his journey in a position of power, in a position of control, which is not a bad plan.
It's not. It's bold.
Yeah. But I mean, if he does turn up there with the dragon banner and the Horn of Valyr, it does give him some credibility.
Loads. Also, an embroidered coat with a dragon on it.
The coat takes it all. That little embroidered dragon. You see, proof. That's all the proof you need. Yeah. So that's what's happening there. But meanwhile, in Tarabon, this chapter jumps around a lot.
Yeah.
Consult map. All right, I've read it. There's my notes.
It's the one in the south. It is immediately west of Amyrlin, where the White Cloaks are based.
Yes. All right. Tarabon, it's kind of in the south where that big bulge is at the bottom there. Not quite so far north. It's probably in line with Lugard. It's a little bit south of where Immersfield is, across the mountains.
Yeah.
So, now that you all know where that is, if you're not looking at a map. And if you're not looking at a map, what the fuck's the matter with you? Go get a map.
What are you doing?
You're not doing this properly. So the White Cloaks are on the move. I call them White Cloaks. I'll never call them what they're really called. They're dicks. And there's 2,000 of them that are heading to a little town in Elmouth, or in Tarabon, called El Cruna, I suppose it's called. So they've heard of these strangers, and it's Geoffrey Bornhold that has been given orders by the Lord Captain Commander, Pedron Niall. I don't know. That's just always been Niall to me. Niall. But because I pronounce it that way, I assume I'm wrong. So it must be something else. Has ordered him on a secret mission. And he's told him, like, listen, you've got to take an entire legion, this 2,000 men, up from Amyrlin into Tarabon, and don't be seen by anybody. So he was like, 2,000 men not being seen. And he's like, well, listen, your orders are, if anyone sees you, you've got to silence them. Like, it's super secret, top secret mission. Strangers have landed in Tommen's Head, and you've got to go and sort this shit out. And he doesn't even give him all the details. He just tells him to go to this village where he'll get more orders from someone who's already based there.
Yeah, that is just vague ass shit to get this big ass order with you. Like, go and get the rest of it there. It's almost like Amazing Race type orders.
Amazing Race, yeah. The next clue is in this town. You get the sense that it is in preparation for some kind of battle, because the point is made that Geoffrey Bornhold, who's the same grandfatherly figure that captured Egwene and Perrin and had the conversation with them in the tent, that he is the most experienced and best battle commander in the White Cloak army. So he's being sent there for a reason. It's him, and that reason is probably battle.
Yes. And also, you don't send 2,000, you don't send a
No.
legion of warriors if there's not going to be a battle.
Yeah.
But he was in Camelin, and he's kind of ticked off that he was removed from Camelin because he said the city was ready to fall. He was ready to overthrow Morghese and her witch counselor and all of that kind of stuff. But we also get some insight into him. Like he's a good guy. Like he's part of the Children of the Light for the good reasons, for the right reasons.
In his own misguided way, yes. Like he's avoiding having to silence.
Exactly.
Innocence.
He says at least, so one of his inner monologues is, at least I haven't killed any innocents. And he's ready to kill a dark friend, but he wants to be 100% certain that person is actually a dark friend, which is not a common trait amongst the White Cloaks. Any suspicion?
Definitely not among the intuition is what's say? The
Inquisitors, the questioners, whatever they're called. They're even worse. We'll get to them. They pop up right now. And so Eamon Valder has been left in charge in Camelin, and right before he left, his son was Dane. Yes, Dane Bornhold. Was it Dane that we met that Rand was cocky with in Berlon?
Yes,
that was Dane, right? So Dane had made it from Berlon to Camelin, and then but he's worried. Like Geoffrem is worried that his son is going to be corrupted by Valder because his son is a fanatic. He is, he's not all there.
And Eamon Valder is a giant douchebag.
Yes.
He is the guy that plotted the death of Pedro Nile.
Isn't he the one that killed him?
He maneuvered another idiot to do it. And then when he finds the guy that killed Pedro Nile, like he walks into the office after it happens, then he kills him.
Oh, yes.
So he kills the guy that killed Pedro Nile. And that's how he becomes the Lord Captain Commander of the White Cloaks.
Oh, yeah. Man, lots is happening.
And he's a Blade Master.
Oh, yeah, he's a douche
and
a Blade
the
Master.
One that Galad then challenges to one-on-one combat, and Galad kills him after taking loads of wounds. He kills him, and Galad becomes the Lord Captain Commander.
Wow. I remember all this now that you're mentioning it. Like, now it's coming back to me. Holy shit. Oh, the word they use is that Dane is full of zeal. Not his he's a crazy, he's like a his mind is a bag of cats. Yes.
This is the point where I'll just interject and say to our listeners, we say this is a spoiler cast, but we don't know shit.
Is this stuff all news to you, Billy? Did you know about
No, I do remember all of that. It's like, but it's not like stuck in my head like I know the story. It's like I remember reading all of this. Whenever we talk about it, it's like, oh yeah. It's like sort of you forget about that the Gwyn gets collared, and it's like all of this stuff is like, man, the story is so vast. There is just so much.
Indeed,
which is great. Lots of surprises.
Yeah, I'm continually surprised.
Me too. So they get to their destination without having to silence any innocent tongues. I think they don't kill anybody along the way. They manage to make it all the way without being seen. At their destination, they met by the questioners. They like to call themselves the Hand of the Children, or what do they call themselves?
Yeah, Hand of the Light or something.
The Hand of the Light. Yeah, the Hand of the Light. I've got it written right in front of me. And yes, and they are the Hand of the Light being led by Bors. Is it? Because I can't pronounce his other name. Jaichim Caridin. And they basically the Spanish Inquisition, and nobody expects them either. So as they arrive, they're actually met by Caridin's second in command, who comes to get them, because Caridin's too important to be out in the field at night. And he says, "Come, let's take your army across that bridge, and then you come with me to the village where we'll talk about more about your orders." And he tells him a little bit that, look, the Shawncham, these strangers have arrived, and the locals are saying that they come with monsters and even Aes Sedai who fight for them. So we get to learn, like, we already know all of this stuff right now. And I was like, yeah, shit, it's not hearsay. They really do have monsters and Aes Sedai fighting for them.
They do.
And there's a mention that's like, don't worry, this town's safe because we've pacified it. And Bornhold's like, you motherfucker. Like, I know what you mean by pacified. Like, they've just killed everybody in this village. The entire town, everybody. And Bornhold's thinking, like, what did you do with the bodies? Did you just pile them up outside, or did you just throw them in the river so that tomorrow downstream everyone is going to see all these bodies and know what you did anyway? Like, He just hates them, and for good reason. They are just the worst. They are.
I don't think you meet a good questioner. Like, I
No.
mean, Jacob Carradine, Darkfriend, Eamon Volder betrays Pedro Nile. Like they're all terrible.
Yeah, I mean, the Children of the Light is just a terrible organization, and the questioners are the worst of them. The
Yes,
people who actively go out there looking for shit.
and torture for
Yes.
Torture
information.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
That's their main point. Like, all right, you've been brought to us, so judge, jury, and execution.
pincers
We
time.
can let's just rip you, but flaying time.
Flaying time. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that. Child Buyer is with Bornhold.
Yeah.
So he's still there, smelling of madness, I assume. And so Buyer takes the army across, and then old Bornhold goes with this other guy, this other dick, back into the town to go and find out what the rest of his orders. He's not happy to get orders because now it finds out that Bornhold has to relieve command as well because Carradine now has command.
Yes.
So that's where we leave them, and we jump back because now, meanwhile, in Fal Dara, we jump back to Fal Dara and we get to Liandrin, who's fast becoming my least favorite character, approaching my disdain of Fane.
We all have a disdain of pain.
For me, it was always a toss-up between Liandrin and later, I can't even remember exactly what she does, but the name Galina Casban is forever burned into my mind. She's another Black Aja sister, and I think she plays a heavy role in Rand being trapped in that box.
Yes.
She does. I remember
Yeah.
that. Yes.
It was always a toss-up for me between Liandrin and Galina. Those are the two worst of the Black Aja sisters.
God damn it, Moritz, stop. My list of people I hate is growing, rapidly.
Faster than you can read.
Indeed.
My list can only have 10 people on there. Come on, stop roaming out real people.
It's already full. Liandrin is up to no good. She feels like she's being watched from the shadows again. She's got that prickling on the skin. So she's walking down. She's going to Lady Amyrlisa's room. And she just barges in without knocking because she just thinks she is the bee's knees. And the lady of Fal Dara and all her lady friends are reading raunchy stories from a book and giggling about it. And as they had no Netflix then, so you got to remember this. That's all you got. And so Liandrin just orders them out. She walks in all petulant with that little mouth of hers that's all pursed, her pursed lips, and orders everybody out and doesn't acknowledge them as is usual for her way. And basically then proceeds to use the one power to torture and coerce Amyrlisa into helping her find the boys. And this is like where you realize, like, obviously, like, well, she's using the one power as a weapon, right? So
Yes.
she's free of the oaths.
Straight up.
Yeah. I mean, she's got this technique of pinching or, like, I don't know, like causing pain in people that looks like they're being stuck by needles.
Yeah.
She's the worst. And there's a whole bunch of blah, 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 blah. She's giving her all these threats and trying to manipulate her, which you can read about in the books. We're not going to bring it up here. But she does basically insinuate that Agelmar is a Darkfriend and that she's there to root out all men who are evil. Doesn't matter if you're a channeler, highborn, lowborn, it doesn't matter. She's there. And she basically coerces Amyrlisa into then finding the boys for her. And that they are very dangerous and worse than Darkfriends. And she does actually say that she brings up the B word. She does actually say that the Black Aja exists, sister. Or not sister, she calls her daughter now. Yeah, she would know. Yeah. The Black Aja exists and they are within these very walls. Like, yeah, within this very room.
Yeah, you're speaking to her.
Speaking with from experience. So indeed, yeah. So after she leaves the room again, she's left her orders, and she's got Amyrlisa as well to come and specifically, take care of the search personally. Otherwise, she's gonna get it. And when she leaves again, she feels that prickling on her skin again, like she's being watched, and she spins around, but there's nothing there. And that's where she comes up. She goes like, all right, now she's going on her mission because her orders had been explicit. So that's the orders that she got from the prologue. From the Darkfriend gathering or whatever it's called. And her orders, I believe, were to go and free Fane, to release him. We don't know that for sure yet, but I'm pretty sure, because we know that Fane escapes, that he's released, he's set free, and I think it's her that is the one that does it. Because then Meanwhile, in the dungeons, jumping around again, Peyton Fane is sitting there, smiling in the dark and waiting, as usual, being his creepy self. And the dungeon door opens, and you can only see a silhouette of someone, and he's surprised by who it is. Like, he doesn't know, he wasn't expecting. He was, oh, this is unexpected that it would be you that's coming to release me. And he's set free, and that's how the chapter ends. We don't see who releases him, but my suspicion is it's her.
No,
No?
Who do you think?
Ingtar.
Of course.
I also think it's Ingtar.
Well, then what were her specific things to get the boys? What were her orders?
No,
Who knows?
she needs to hunt the boys. She's after the boys big time. That
Right.
is like, I definitely, without a doubt, there's no one that would have gone past the guards without any problem. But we also learned that the guards were viciously killed.
Yes.
Yes, in a future chapter.
The next one.
I'm going with Ingtar being the
I think it's Ingtar as well, because I also think that the fact that Peyton Fane is surprised means that it would have to be. I mean, Peyton Fane knows that the Black RJ exists. He would have to have some kind of relationship with the person, or know the person, or know of the person that is freeing him. And I don't know that he necessarily would know who Leandrin was. And if Leandrin had to come free him, I don't know if he would have that reaction. Where Ingtar is the guy that dragged him into Agelmar's office.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Well, we don't know that for sure. When we spoke about Ingtar the first time and the fact that he is a Darkfriend, which is now like 2 episodes ago, I think, he is listed on a. I mean, this is also just internet information, right? So who knows how credible it is, but it all fits. He is one of 2 Darkfriends that actually return to the light.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Varen is the other one.
Yeah. Is Varen the other one? Because she was never redeemed. She was never a dark friend.
She had to. I mean, she had to do the oaths, like they swear oaths.
Yeah. But it's not like she needed. She did it purposefully from the beginning. She didn't need redemption.
She did, but it's not like she was being so good that she thought, I will make the sacrifice and go to the dark. She was genuinely academically interested in what was going on. Like, she's neutral. She's not good or bad. I think that's my read on it anyway. But anyway, at that point, I think I read something along the lines of when Ingtar eventually does convert back to the light, I think he's busy dying or something like that. I think he actually confesses to being the one that made the Trollocs into the keep, and by association is the guy that freed Peyton Fane.
And that's also why I think Ingtar issued the orders that no one could leave.
Could be.
This tracks. This all fits together.
He had his own. I would actually not be surprised if Ingtar was in the meeting in the Darkfriend Social.
There's a Shannara warrior there that I think is definitely.
I agree.
I think it's
him as well.
When I was reading about it, it's commonly accepted that the Shannara warrior that was walking around the Darkfriend Social was Ingtar. Yeah.
Well, so many people in one place. Everything is happening already right there.
Loads of people reading about you that have massive impacts on the story for a long time. So we are getting brand new characters introduced. I mean, Swan, major one. Varen, huge one. Leandrin plays a massive role. Alana plays a massive role.
Well, a little bit sort of, as a first-time reader, you don't like there's new people that arrived on the shores. Like,
I don't know how a new reader would keep track of all of this stuff.
You, like, as a new reader, hate them, just hate them right now.
We're not even new readers, and we don't know. We can't even keep track. So,
no, Seraphel again. What does she do? Yeah, but it just again is very quickly setting up like a massive branching storyline that is going to go all over the place, and the seeds are being sown super early. Like the first book is very, very focused on just their journey right to the eye, and now that they have completed their quest set forth by them or to them in the first book. Now the whole playing field is sort of opening up. It's like they finished the training and tutorial part of a video game, and now the true open world is being presented to them with all the plots of the political maneuverings of the Aes Sedai and the White Tower and all of these moving parts.
Yeah.
It's I mean, just from the first 6 chapters in book 2, you look at the characters introduced here and what's going to become of them, and you're like immediately hit by the fact that, man, the scope of this thing is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Did we want to dwell on that chapter anymore?
No, I think Jody gave us a really good insight into that chapter. You had a beefy chapter there.
Yeah, no, I kept on jumping. I've like several sections that say meanwhile
Yeah.
back in this place. Meanwhile, like
Yeah.
we're jumping around the map. I mean, we're up in Fal Dara, which is top right hand, like right against, like, you know, it's like stuck in between the spine of the world and the mountains of doom, and then jumping over across to the western coast. They speak of Ilion, which is in the southern coast. So we're everywhere, talking about everything.
That's would you say that chapter is as beefy as Perrin?
I would say it's less beefy.
No one's as beefy as our beefy boy.
It's not the word beefy. It's the combination of beefy and boy that really gets me, and the tone that Moritz uses when he says it. I'm gonna have a shower now and put on the crying game. You know.
Okay, cool. So if that is it, I will ask you guys if you have picked a favorite moment.
Let's start with someone else.
Yeah, I'm always ready.
Okay, shoot, Phil, what you got?
We may have had this discussion just as we started a bit of a call early on, but the introduction to Matt and his gambling, and and not just Matt gambles and has a good time. It is Matt gambles and takes everyone's money all the time.
And then like walks away with their money laughing about it.
Yeah, like, yeah, I've got the dark one's luck or whatever they want to call it, but yeah, just I don't need to work. All I need to do is travel, play dice, and keep traveling.
And I think the people that are busy playing with him are also like, "Hey, you can't leave while you're busy winning." And he's like, "Yeah, I can."
Yeah, I can.
I think he says it's better than leaving when I'm losing.
Losing, yeah.
If you had to ask me who my favorite character in all of the books is, I think it's Matt.
I was going to say Eamon Volder.
Nah.
No, of course it's Matt.
I've always seen you as the Matt character, and
I've always associated with Matt.
I can definitely see that.
I think a close second for me. This is where we're digressing completely, but because I brought it up earlier in this episode, I think a close second for me is Egwene.
I've always been partial to Perrin as one of my favorite characters. He goes off the rails a bit looking for his wife, but generally speaking,
Perrin's nice and grounded, you know, like he doesn't change much as a person other than becoming the lord of the two rivers and sort of accepting the fact that people look up to him and look to him for leadership. But his personality basically stays the same throughout.
I like Nynaeve as well. She's a great character. Like she has a like an awesome arc throughout all the books and does some amazing shit.
I like Nynaeve. I like Lan.
Moiraine, choose like favorite male character, maybe Perrin.
And favorite male character, Paiden Fane. Absolutely.
Shut up.
Not.
End of podcast. Click off.
End of all future podcasts. Right, Joe, do you want me to go first, or do you have a favorite moment?
I don't have a favorite moment, but I have a favorite. It's not a specific moment as usual, but it's the idea, the introduction to this whole world behind the scenes. Like that's what I've actually been through this podcast talking about. Like there's a much bigger world behind. There's the politics of the tower. There's these relationships that have been there for much longer than we. Like between Swan and Moiraine, it's 20 years. This plan that's been in. So like this whole behind the scenes world that's being opened up to us in this book is probably what I'm most excited about, having started reading it.
Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, mine also isn't a moment, it's a thing, and it's true to my previous favorite moment form. It is something totally innocuous and not really necessarily noteworthy, but when Rand is gathering all his stuff, he grabs his bow, and they describe it as being 2 hands taller than him.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like almost 7 feet tall. I mean, Rand is tall, and this thing is like considerably taller than he is. And only Rand, Perrin, and Lan are actually able to draw it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
no one
yes.
else, I'm assuming no one else in the keep or anyone that's come across him is actually able to draw this bow. It's huge.
Is it span and a half high, I think?
It's something like that. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, spans, multiple spans, jokes. Yeah, but the fact that they sort of make reference to the Two Rivers longbows a lot throughout the series, and the fact Rand is also a very, very good archer, and Tam has always won the archery contest. Like everyone in Eamon's Field in the Two Rivers area is a good archer, and Tam is the best, and Rand is his son. And Rand has learned from his dad. He's got the flame in the void, and you just know that he can use this bow to devastating effect. And I just like the fact, and he made it himself. After arriving at the keep, Rand made this Two Rivers longbow, and the other guards, I think Massimo or someone, like makes a comment about, oh, you can't fire that off the back of a horse.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, like, he doesn't need to. Like,
Hold on. Matt has the same bow. Matt fires it off the back of the horse in the blight to shoot that.
Matt has a bow. He does not have a bow that's 2 hands taller than Rand.
But if they were from the same place and they all used longbows, would they not have the same bow?
You would not be able to fire that bow off horseback.
It's just a physical. It's like it's not physically possible, I don't think.
And they state that only Rand, Perrin, and Lan can draw it.
Oh,
That's
poor
stated
Matt.
in the book.
He's not even on that list.
Matt, sorry boy, you've got 2 hands shorter bow.
He's got the Dark One's own luck to help him. He doesn't need a longbow.
Yeah.
What I have appreciated into this book and how quickly it comes to light is we're probably going to get to the name of it later on, but the game of houses in every aspect of it.
Dies Daymar.
Dies Daymar. There we go. Thanks, Dies Daymar. The game of houses. That's just it's apparent everywhere. It's happening.
Yes.
Sort of this level of politics, if for lack
Yes,
of a word
it's-
work. It's
yeah.
just a level of politics that's continuously at work.
It's great. It's really cool. Like even within the Children of the Light, and even
In the
within
tower.
the Aes Sedai, and every society has these little power struggles, and then Caerhine, it's almost gamified. Like everyone knows it's at the forefront of their mind. Everyone knows it is busy happening right now in like how I am standing, my posture in this conversation.
Being
is a-
read. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
No, we'll get into that.
Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
You think we're rambling now? Wait. So, okay, cool. Well, then our next episode, we'll cover chapters 6, which is Dark Prophecy, through to the end of chapter 11, Glimmers in the Pattern. In the meantime, we have given people plenty of things to correct.
It's what we do.
Please do reach out to us on social media. Our Twitter handle is Blood and Ash Pod. On Facebook, we're just Blood and Ashes Podcast. And we also obviously have the website, bloodandashespodcast.com, where you can leave some comments that we will hopefully receive and address and read out on the show. So please do reach out to us. Anything else from you guys that you wanted to wrap up?
No, we've had a good old one tonight. I'm ready
Done enough
to
rambling.
see some fire time chit-chat on the outside.
Excellent. Well, on that note, I will bid you both a fond adieu and see everyone next time.
Adios.
Cheers.